हरे कृष्ण। ईश्वर परम कृष्ण सच्चिदानंद विग्रह अनादिरादिर्गोविन्द सर्वकारण कारणं सहस्रपत्र कमलं गोकुलाख्यं महत्पदं तत्कर्णिकारं तद्धाम तदनन्तांशसम्भवम् कर्णिकारं महद्यन्त्रं षट्कोणं वज्रकीलकम् सदङ्गसत्पतिस्थानं प्रकृत्या पुरुषेण च प्रेमानन्दमहानन्दा रसेनावस्थितं हि यत् ज्योतिरूपेण मनुना कामबीजेन सङ्गतं तत्किञ्जल्कं तदंशानं तत्पत्राणि श्रियामपि चतुरश्रं तत्परितः श्वेतदीपाख्यमद्भुतम् चतुरश्रं चतुर्मूर्तेश्चतुर्धाम चतुष्कृतम् चतुर्भिः पुरुषार्थैश्च चतुर्भिः हेतुभिर्वृतम् शूलेर्दशभिरानद्धम् ऊर्ध्वादोद्विग्विदिक्ष्वपि अष्टभिर्निधिभिर्जुष्टम् अष्टभिः सिद्धिभिस्तथा मनुरूपैश्च दशभिर्दिक्पालैः परितोवृतम् श्यामैर्गौरैश्च रक्तैश्च शुक्लैश्च परशार्दशभैः शोभितं शक्तिभिस्ताभिरद्भुताभिः समन्ततः एवं ज्योतिर्मयो देव सदानन्द परात्पर आत्मा रामस्य तस्यास्ति प्रकृत्या न समागम मायाया राममानस्य न वियोगस्तया सह आत्मना रमया रेमे त्यक्तकालं शिशिक्षया नियति सा रमा देवी तत्प्रिया तद्वशं तथा तल्लिंगं भगवान् शम्भुर्ज्योतिरूप सनातन या योनिशा पराशक्ति कामो बीजं महेद्धरे लिंगयोनि आत्मिका जाता इमा महेश्वरी प्रजा शक्तिमान पुरुषा सोऽयं लिंगरूपी महेश्वर तस्मिन्नाविराबुल्लिंगे महाविष्णुर्जगत्पति सहस्रशीर्षा पुरुषा सहस्राक्षा सहस्रपाद सहस्रबाहुर्विश्वात्मा सहस्रांशा सहस्रशूर नारायण स भगवान् आपस्तस्मात् सनातनात् आविराशित कारणार्णो निधिः शङ्करासनात्मकः योगनिद्रां गतस्तस्मिन् सहस्रांशा स्वयं महान् तद्रोमबीरजालेषु बीजं शङ्करसंस्नुच हैमानि अन्दानि जातानि महाभूतावृतानि तु प्रतियन्दमेवमेकांशादेकांशाद्विशति स्वयं सहस्रमूर्ध विश्वात्मा महाविष्णु सनातनः वामङ्गादसृजात् विष्णुं दक्षिणाङ्गात् प्रजापतिं ज्योतिर्लिङ्गमयं शम्भुं कूर्चादेशादवासृजात् अहङ्कारात्मकं विश्वं तस्मादेतत् विजायत अतः तै श्रीविदैर्वेषैर्लीलम् उद्वहतः किल योगनिद्रा भगवती तस्य श्रीरिव सङ्गता सिशिक्षायं ततो नावेस्तस्य पद्मं विनिर्ययो तन्नालं हेमनलिनं ब्रह्मणो लोकमद्भुतम् तत्त्वानि पूर्वरूढानि कारणानि परस्परं समवायाय प्रयोगच्च विभिन्नानि पृथक् पृथक् चिक्चक्त्या सज्जमानोऽथ भगवानादिपुरुषः योजयन्मायया देवो योगनिद्रामकल्पयत् योजयित्वा तु तानि एव प्रविवेश स्वयं गुहां प्रविष्टे तस्मिंस्तु जीवात्मा प्रतिबुध्यते स नित्यो नित्यसम्बन्ध प्रकृतिश्च परैवश एवं सर्वात्मसम्बन्धं नाभ्यं पद्मं हरेरभूत् तत्ब्रह्मा भवद्भूयाश्चतुर्वेदी चतुर्मुखः सञ्जातो भगवच्चक्त्या तत्कालं किल चोदितः तितिक्षायां मतिं चक्रे पूर्वसंस्कारसंस्कृता ददर्श केवलं ध्वान्तं नान्यत् किमपि सर्वतः उवाचा पुरतस्तस्मै तस्य दिव्य सरस्वती कामकृष्णाय गोविन्द हे गोपीजन इति अपि वल्लभाय प्रियावहनेर्मन्त्रं ते दाशयति प्रियं तपस्त्वं तप एतेन तव सिद्धिर्भविष्यति अथ ते पेशसुचिरं प्रीणन् गोविन्दमव्ययम् श्वेत्वा दीपपतिं कृष्णं गोलोकस्थं परात्परं प्रकृत्या गुणरूपिण्या रूपिण्या पर्युपासितं सहस्रदलसम्पन्ने कोटिकिञ्जल्कभ्रमिते भूमिश्चिन्तामणिस्तत्र कर्णिकारे महाशने समासीनं चिदानन्दं ज्योतिरूपं सनातनं शब्दब्रह्ममयं वेणुं वादयन्तं मुखाम्बुजे विलासिनी गणावृतं स्वैश्वर्यंशैरभिष्टुतम् अतः वेणुनिनादस्य त्रयीमूर्तिमयी गति स्फुरान्ति प्रविवेशासु मुखाब्जानि स्वयंभुवा गायत्रीं गायतास्तस्मादधिगत्य सरोजजः संस्कृताश्चादिगुणुना द्विजातामगमत्ततः त्रया प्रबुद्धो अथा विधिर्विज्ञाता तत्त्वसागरः
चिन्तामणि प्रकरसद्मसुकल्पवृक्षा लक्षावृतेषु सुरभिरभिपालयन्तं लक्ष्मीसहस्रशतसङ्भ्रमसेव्यमानं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि वेणुं क्वनन्तमरविन्ददलायताक्षं हावतं समसिताम्बुदसुन्दराङ्गं कन्दर्पकोटिकमनीयविशेषशोभं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि आलोलचन्द्रकलसद्वनमाल्यवंशी रत्नाङ्गदं प्रणयकेलिकलाविलासं श्यामं त्रिभङ्गललितं नियतप्रकाशं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि गानि यस्य सकलेन्द्रियवृत्तिमन्ति पश्यन्ति भान्ति कलयन्ति चिरं जगन्ति आनन्दचिन्मयसदुज्ज्वलविग्रहस्य गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि अद्वैतमच्युतमनादिमनन्तरूपम् आद्यं पुराणपुरुषं नवयौवनं च वेदेषु दुर्लभम् अदुर्लभम् आत्मभक्तौ गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि पन्थास्तु कोटिशतवत्सरसम्प्रगाम्यो वायोरथापि मनसो मुनिपुङ्गवानां सोऽप्यस्ति यत्प्रपदसीम्यविचिन्त्य तत्त्वे गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि एकोऽप्यसौ रचयितुं जगदण्डकोटिं यच्छक्तिरस्ति जगदण्डचयायनन्तः दान्तरस्थपरमाणुचयान्तरस्थं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि यद्भावभावितधियो मनुजास्तथैव सम्प्राप्य रूपमहिमासनयानभूषः सूक्तैर्यमेव निगमप्रथितैस्तुवन्ति गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि आनन्दचिन्मयरसा प्रतिभाविताभिस्ताभिर्य एव निजरूपतया कलाभिः गोलोक एव निविशत्यखिलात्मभूतो गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि प्रेमाञ्जनच्चुरितभक्तिविलोचनेन सन्तः सदैव हृदयेषु विलोकयन्ति यं श्यामसुन्दरमचिन्त्य गुणस्वरूपं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि रामादिमूर्तिषु कलानियमेन तिष्ठन् नानावतारमकरोद्भुवनेषु किन्तु कृष्णः स्वयं समभवत् paramak pumanyo Govindamadi Purushang Tamahang Bhajami Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Andakoti Koti Shvashesha Vasudhari Vibhuti Bhinnam Tad Brahma Nishkalam Anantamashesha Bhutam Govindamadi Purushang Tamahang Bhajami Maya hi yasya jagadanda shatani sute Traigunya tad vishaya veda vitaya mana Sattva valambi parasatvang vishuddha sattvang Govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami Ananda chinmaya rasatmataya manaksu Yak praninang pratipalan smaratam upetya Lilayatena bhuvanani jayatya jasram Govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami Goloka namni nijadhamni tale chatasya Devi mahesha haridhama suteshu teshu Tete prabhava nichaya vihitascha yena Govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami Shrishti sthiti pralaya sadhana shakti rekha Chayeva yasya bhuvanani biparti durga Chanu rupam api yasya chacheshtate sa Govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami Kshirang yata dati vikara vishesha yogat Sanjayate nahi tatak pratagasti hetoho Yaksham bhutam apitata samupaiti karyad Govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami Diparchireva hidashantaram abhyupetya Dipayate vivritehetu samana dharma Yastadrigeva vishnutaya vibhati Govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami Yakaranarnava jale bhajati sma yoga Nidramananta jagadanda saroma kupaha Adhara shaktim avalambya parang swamurting Govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami Yasyaika nishvasita kalamathavalambya Jivanti loma vilaja jagadanda nathaha Vishnur mahansi ihayasya kalabhishesho Govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami Bhasvanyatashma shakaleshu nijeshu tejaha Sviyankiyat prakatayat yapitadvad atra Brahmaya esha jagad anda vidhana karta Govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami Yat pada pallava yugang vinidhaya kumbha Dvandve pranama samaye saganadhi rajaha Vignan vihantu malamasya jagatrayasya Govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami Agnir mahi gaganamambu muruddishascha Kalastatatma manasiti jagatrayani Yasmad bhavanti vibhavanti vishanti yangcha Govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami Yachakshuresha savita sakala grahanam Raja samasta suramurti ratesha tejaha Yasyagyaya brahmati sanghritakala chakro Govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami Dharmota papa nichaya shrutayastha pangsi Brahmadikita patagavathayascha jivaha Yadatta matra vibhava prakata prabhava Govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami Yastvindra gopa matavendra mahosvakarma Bandhanurupa palabhajana matanoti Karmani nirdahiti kintu cha bhakti bhajang Govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami Yang krodha kama sahaja pranayati piti vatsalya moha guru gaurava sevya bhavahi sanchintya tasya sadrishing tanumapurete govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami Shriya Kantaha Kantaha Parama Purusha Kalpataravo Druma Bhumish Chintamani Ganamayi Toyamamritam Katha Ganam Natyam Gamanam Apivangshi Priya Sakhi Chiranandang Jyotik Paramapi Tadasvadyam Apicha Sayatra Kshirabdhik Sravati Surabhibhyas Chachumahan Nimeshardhakyo vavrajati nahi yatrapi samayaha Paje shvetadvipang tamaham iha kolokamitiyam Vidantaste santakshiti virala charakatipaye Ato vacha mahavishnur bhagavantang prajapatim Brahman mahatva vijnane prajasarge chachenmatihi Pancha shlokimimang vidyang vatsatattang nibodhame Prabudhe jnana bhaktibhyam atmanyananda chinmayi Udetyanutama bhaktir bhagavat prema lakshana Pramanais tat sadacharais tad abhyasay nirantaram Bodhayan atmanatmanam bhaktim apyutamang labhed Yasya shreyas karang nasti yaya nivritamapnuyat Ya sadhayati mameva bhakting tameva sadhayet Dharmananyan parityajya mamekang bhaja vishvasan Yadrishi shraddha siddhir bhavati tadrishi Kurvan nirantarang karma loko yam manuvartate Tenaiva karmana dhyayan mang parang bhaktam icchati Ahang hi vishvasya characharasya bijang pradhanang prakritik pumangscha maya hitang teja idang bibharshi vidhehi tvamato jaganti Ishvara parama krishna sachidananda vigraha anadiradir govindaha sarvakarana karanam iti Shri Brahma Samhita Sampurnam Hari Om Jai Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan. Hare Krishna. I don't need that because I have this. Welcome. Thank you. So once more, one other Saturday, we've chanted the 5th chapter of Brahma Samhita, which is the only extant chapter, which Lord Chaitanya found when he was traveling in South India along the banks of the Payasvini River in the Adi Keshava temple. And Srila Prabhupada asked us to chant this Brahma Samhita as a regular daily function. And in the mornings in all ISKCON temples, when the deity curtains are open after the deity's been dressed in the morning, then we play that verse with Jamuna singing Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. So now what we usually do is we haven't read the English yet today, right? So we read the English of what we just recited in Sanskrit. And it's in this little book, Brahma Samhita. And we'll go around, take turns. Everybody reads 5 verses. This English was translated, I think, in the 1920s by Bhakti Siddhanta in very, very technical language. And some of it also isn't quite grammatically punctuated perfectly, so that there are some run-on sentences and things like that. But nevertheless, the meaning is very profound. and a little hard to get. While we're reading through it, because we're going to talk about one verse and purport, so while we're reading through it, everybody think about if there's any question or any point that you want to talk about. I guess I'll start with the first 5. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme Godhead. He has an eternal, blissful, spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin, and he is the prime cause of all causes. The spiritual place of transcendental pastimes of Krishna is portrayed in the 2nd verse. The super-excellent station of Krishna, which is known as Gokula, has thousands of petals and a corolla, like that of a lotus, sprouted from a part of his infinitary aspect, the whirl of the leaves being the actual abode of Krishna. The whirl of that transcendental lotus is the realm wherein dwells Krishna. It is a hexagonal figure, the abode of the indwelling, predominated and predominating aspect of the Absolute. Like a diamond, the central supporting figure of self-luminous Krishna stands as the transcendental source of all potencies. The holy name, consisting of 18 transcendental letters, is manifested in a hexagonal figure with 6-fold divisions. The whirl of that eternal realm, Gokula, is the hexagonal abode of Krishna. Its petals are the abodes of gopis, who are part and parcel of Krishna, to whom they are most lovingly devoted and are similar in essence. The petals shine beautifully like so many walls. The extended leaves of that lotus are the garden-like Dhamma, that is, spiritual abode of Sri Radhika, the most beloved of Krishna. The surrounding external plane of Gokula is described in this verse. There is a mysterious quadrangular place named Shvetadvipa surrounding the outskirts of Gokula. Shvetadvipa is divided into 4 parts on all sides. The abode of Vasudeva, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha are separately located in each of these 4 parts. These 4 divided abodes are enveloped by the 4-fold human requirements, such as piety, wealth, passion, and liberation, as also by the 4 Vedas, namely Rig, Sama, Yajur, and Atharva, which deal with the mantra and which are the bases of achievements of the 4-fold mundane requirements. 10 tridents are fixed in the 10 directions, including the zenith and nadir. The 8 directions are decorated with the 8 jewels of Mahapadma, Padma, Shankha, Makara, Kachapa, Mukunda, Kunda, and Nila. There are 10 protectors, Dikpalas, of the 10 directions in the form of mantra. The associates of the hues of blue, yellow, red, and white, and the extraordinary potencies bearing the names of Vimala, etc., shine on all sides. Next 5.
The Lord of Gokul is the transcendental supreme Godhead, the own self of eternal ecstasies. He is the superior of all superiors and is busily engaged in the enjoyment of the transcendental realm and has no association with his mundane potency. Krishna never consorts with his illusory energy, still her connection is not entirely cut off from the absolute truth. When he intends to create the material world, the amorous pastime, in which he engages by consorting with his own spiritual chit potency, Rama, by casting his glance at the deluding energy in the shape of sending his time energy, is an auxiliary activity. The secondary process of association with Maya is described. Rama Devi, the spiritual or chit potency, beloved consort of the Supreme Lord, is the regulatrix of all entities. The divine plenary portion of Krishna creates the mundane world. At creation there appears a divine halo of the nature of his own subjective portion, Swams. This halo is divine Sambhu, the masculine symbol or manifested emblem of Supreme Lord. This halo is the dim twilight reflection of the supreme eternal effulgence. This masculine symbol is the subjective portion of the divinity who functions as progenitor of the mundane world, subject to the supreme regulatrix, Niyati. The conceiving potency in regard to mundane creation makes her appearance out of the supreme regulatrix. She is Maya, the limited non-absolute apara potency, the symbol of mundane feminine productivity. The intercourse of these two brings forth the faculty of perverted cognition, the reflection of the seed of the procreative desire of the Supreme Lord. All offspring of the consort of the great Lord Maheshwar of this mundane world are of the nature of the embodiment of the mundane masculine and feminine generative organs. The person embodying the material causal principle, namely the great Lord of this mundane world, Maheshwar, Sambhu, in the form of the male generating organ, is joined to his female consort, the limited energy Maya, as the efficient causal principle. The Lord of the world, Mahavishnu, is manifest in him by his subjective person in the form of his glance.
The Lord of the mundane world, Mahavishnu, possesses thousands of heads, eyes, hands. He is the source of thousands of avatars in his thousands of subjective portions. He is the creator of thousands of individual souls. The same Mahavishnu is spoken of by the name of Narayan in this mundane world. From that eternal person has sprung the vast expanse of water of the spiritual causal ocean. The subjective portion of Shankarshan, who abides in Paravyoma, the Avab Supreme Purusha with thousands of subjective portions, reposes in the state of divine sleep, Yoga Nidra, in the waters of the spiritual causal ocean. The spiritual seeds of Sankarshan existing in the pores of the skin of Mahavishnu are born as so many golden sperms. These sperms are covered with 5 great elements. The same Mahavishnu entered into each universe as his own separate subjective portions. The divine portions that entered into each universe are possessed of his majestic extension. That is, they are the eternal universal soul Mahavishnu, possessing thousands of heads. The same Mahavishnu created Vishnu from his left limb, Brahma, the first progenitor of beings, from his right limb, and from the space between his 2 eyebrows, Shambhu, the divine masculine manifested halo.
The function of Shambhu in relation to jivas is that this universe enshrining the mundane egotistic principle has originated from Shambhu. Thereupon, the same great personal Godhead, assuming the threefold forms of Vishnu, Prajapati, and Shambhu, entering into the mundane universe, plays the pastimes of preservation, creation, and destruction of this world. This pastime is contained in the mundane world, hence it being perverted. The Supreme Lord, identical with Mahavishnu, prefers to consort with the goddess Yoga Nidra, the constituent of his own spiritual chit potency, full of the ecstatic trance of eternal bliss appertaining to his own divine personality. When Vishnu, lying in the ocean of milk, wills to create this universe, a golden lotus springs from his navel pit. The golden lotus, with its stem, is the abode of Brahma, representing Brahmaloka or Satyaloka. Before their conglomeration, the primary elements in their nascent state remain originally separate entities. Non-application of the conglomerating process is the cause of their separated existence. Divine Mahavishnu, primal Godhead, through association with his own spiritual chit potency, moved Maya, and by the application of the conglomerating principle, created those different entities in their state of cooperation. And after that, he himself consorted with Yoga Nidra by way of his eternal dalliance with his spiritual chit potency. By conglomerating all those separate entities, he manifested the innumerable mundane universes and himself entered into the inmost recesses of every extended conglomerate, Virat Vigraha. At that time, those jivas who had lain dormant during the cataclysm were awakened.
The same jiva is eternal and is for eternity and without a beginning, joined to the Supreme Lord by the tie of an eternal kinship. He is transcendental spiritual potency. The divine lotus, which springs from the navel pit of Vishnu, is in every way related by the spiritual tie with all souls, and is the origin of four-faced Brahma versed in the four Vedas. On coming out of the lotus, Brahma, being guided by the divine potency, turned his mind to act of the creation under the impulse of previous impressions. But he could see nothing but darkness in every direction. Then the goddess of learning, Saraswati, the divine consort of Supreme Lord, said thus to Brahma, who saw nothing but gloom in all directions, O Brahma, this mantra, namely, Klim Krishnasya Govindaya Gopi Jaya Vallava Sat Swaha, will assuredly fulfill your heart's desire. O Brahma, so thou practice spiritual association by means of this mantra, then all your desires will be fulfilled. Brahma, being desirous of satisfying Govinda, practiced the cultural acts for Krishna in Goloka, Lord of Svetadvipa, for a long time. His meditation ran thus: there exists a divine lotus of 1,000 petals, augmented by millions of filaments, in the transcendental land of Goloka. On this whole, there exists a great divine throne on which is seated Sri Krishna, the form of eternal effulgence of transcendental bliss. Playing on his divine flute, resonant with the sound, with his lotus mouth, he is worshipped by his amorous milkmaids with their respective subjective portions and extensions, and also by his external energy, who stays outside, embodying all mundane qualities.
Read. You already read 6, right? Okay, go ahead. Okay, I was going to say read 4 more, but then. Yeah, you don't want to read, or you're welcome to, please. Okay, sure. Go ahead.
Then Gayatri, mother of the Vedas, being made manifest, that is, imparted by the divine sound of the flute of Sri Krishna, entered into the lotus mouth of Brahma, born from himself through his 8 ear holes. The lotus-born Brahma, having received the Gayatri, sprung from the flute song of Sri Krishna, attained the status of the twice-born, having been initiated by the supreme primal preceptor Godhead himself. Enlightened by the recollection of that Gayatri, embodying the 3 Vedas, Brahma became acquainted with the expanse of the ocean of truth. Then he worshipped Sri Krishna, the essence of all the Vedas, with this hymn: I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor, who is tending the cow, yielding all desire, in abode built with spiritual gems, surrounded by millions of purpose trees, always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds of thousands of Lakshmis or Gopis. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is an adept in playing on his flute, with blooming eyes like lotus petals, with head decked with peacock's feather, with a figure of beauty tinged with the hue of blue clouds, and his unique loveliness charming millions of cupids.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, round whose neck is swinging a garland of flowers, beautified with the moon locket, whose 2 hands are adorned with the flute and jeweled ornaments, who always revels in pastimes of love, whose graceful threefold bending form of Shyama Sundara is eternally manifest. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose transcendental form is full of bliss, truth, substantiality, and is thus full of the most dazzling splendor. Each of the limbs of that transcendental figure possesses in himself the full-fledged functions of all the organs, and eternally sees, maintains, and manifests the infinite universes, both spiritual and mundane. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is inaccessible to the Vedas, but obtainable by pure, unalloyed devotion of the soul, who is without a second, who is not subject to decay, is without a beginning, whose form is endless, who is the beginning and the eternal Purusha, yet he is a person possessing the beauty of blooming youth. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, only the tip of the toe of whose lotus feet is approached by the yogis who aspire after the transcendental and betake themselves to pranayama by drilling the respiration, or by the jnanis who try to find out the non-differentiated Brahman by the process of elimination of the mundane, extending over thousands of millions of years. He is an undifferentiated entity, as there is no distinction between potency and the possessor thereof. In his work of creation of millions of worlds, his potency remains inseparable. All the universes exist in him, and he is present in his fullness in every one of the atoms that are scattered throughout the universe at one and the same time. Such is the primeval Lord whom I adore.
I adore the same Govinda, the primeval Lord, in whose praise men who are imbued with devotion sing the mantra suktas told by the Vedas by gaining their appropriate beauty, greatness, thrones, conveyances, and ornaments. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, residing in his own realm, Goloka, with Radha resembling his own spiritual figure, the embodiment of the ecstatic potency possessed of the 64 artistic activities in the company of her confidants, Sakhis, embodiments of the extensions of her bodily form, permeated and vitalized by his ever blissful spiritual rasa.
Page 74.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is Shyama Sundar, Krishna himself, with inconceivable, innumerable attributes, whom the pure devotees see in their heart of hearts with the eye of devotion, tinged with the salve of love. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who manifested himself personally as Krishna and the different avatars in the world in the forms of Rama, Narsimha, Vamana, etc., as his subjective portions. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose effulgence is the source of the non-differentiated Brahman mentioned in the Upanishads. Being differentiated from the infinity of glories of the mundane universe, appears as indivisible, infinite, limitless truth.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is the absolute substantive principle, being the ultimate entity in the form of the support of all existence, whose external potency embodies the threefold mundane qualities, sattva, rajas, and tamas, and diffuses the Vedic knowledge regarding the mundane world. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose glory ever triumphantly dominates the mundane world by the activity of his own pastimes, being reflected in the mind of recollecting souls as a transcendental entity of ever blissful cognitive rasa. Lowest of all is located Devi Dham, the mundane world. Next above it is Mahesh Dham, the abode of Mahesh. Above Mahesh Dham is placed Hari Dham, the abode of Hari. And above them all is located Krishna's own realm, named Goloka. I adore the primeval Lord, Govinda, who has allotted the respective authorities to the rulers of those graded realms. The external potency Maya, who is of the nature of the shadow of the Chit potency, is worshipped by all people as Durga, the creating, preserving, and destroying agency of this mundane world. I adore the primeval Lord, Govinda, in accordance with whose will Durga conducts herself. Just as milk is transformed into curd by the action of acids, but yet the effect curd is neither same as nor different from its cause, milk. So I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, of whom the state of Shambhu is a transformation for the performance of the work of destruction.
The light of one candle being communicated to other candle, although it burns separately in them, is the same in its quality. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, who exhibits himself equally in the same mobile manner in his various manifestations. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, who, assuming his own great subjective form, who bears the name of Shesha, replete with the all-accommodating potency and reposing in the causal ocean with the infinity of the world in the pores of his hair, enjoys creative sleep. Brahma and other lords of the mundane worlds, appearing from the pores of the hair of Mahavishnu, remains alive as long as the duration of one exhalation of the later, that is Mahavishnu. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, of whose subjective personality Mahavishnu is the portion of portion. I adore primeval Lord Govinda, from whom the separated subjective portion Brahma receives his power for regulation of the mundane world, just as the sun manifests some portion of his light in all effulgent gems that bear the names of Suryakanta, etc. I adore primeval Lord Govinda, whose lotus feet are always held by Ganesha upon the pair of tumuli protruding from his elephant head, in order to obtain power for his function of destroying all the obstacles on the path of progress of the three worlds. The three worlds are composed of the 9 elements, namely fire, earth, ether, water, air, direction, time, soul, and a mind. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, from whom they originate, in whom they exist, and into whom they enter at the time of universal cataclysm.
The sun, who is the king of all the planets, full of infinite effulgence, the image of the good soul, is as the eye of the world. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, in pursuance of whose order the sun performs his journey, mounting the wheel of time. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, by whose conferred power are maintained the manifold potencies that are found to exist of all virtues, all vices, the Vedas, the penances, and all jivas from Brahma to the meanest insect. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, who burns up to their roots all fruitive activities of those who are imbued with devotion and impartiality, ordains for each the due enjoyment of fruits of one's activities, of all those who walk in the path of work in accordance with the chain of their previously performed works, no less in the case of the tiny insect that bears the name of Indra Gopa than in that of Indra, king of the Devas. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, the meditators of whom, by meditating upon him under the sway of wrath, amorous passion, natural friendly love, fear, parental affection, delusion, reverence, and willing service, attain to bodily forms befitting the nature of their contemplation. I worship that transcendental seed known as...
Mukaravinda can read next 5. Or did you want to try this time? Or? Okay.
I worship that transcendental seat known as Svetadvip, where as loving consorts, the Lakshmi in their unalloyed spiritual essence practice the amorous service of the Supreme Lord Krishna as their only lover, where every tree is a transcendental purpose tree, where the soil is a purpose gem, all water is nectar, every bird is a song, every gate is a dance, the flute is the favorite attendant, effulgence is full of transcendental bliss, and the supreme spiritual entities are all enjoyable and tasty, where numberless milk cows always emit transcendental ocean of milk, where there is eternal existence of the transcendental time, who is ever present and without past or future, and hence is not subject to the quality of passing away even for the space of half a moment. That realm is known as Golok only to a very few self-realized souls in this world. On hearing these hymns containing the essence of the truth, the Supreme Lord Krishna said to Brahma, Brahma, If you experience the inclination to create offspring by being endowed with the real knowledge of the glory of Godhead, listen, my beloved, from me to this line set forth in the following 5 slokas. When the pure spiritual experience is excited by means of cognition and service, bhakti, super excellent unalloyed devotional characterized by love for Godhead is awakened towards Krishna, the beloved of all souls. The highest devotion is attained by slow degree by the method of constant endeavor for self-realization with the help of scriptural evidence, theistic conduct, and perseverance in practice. These preliminary practices of devotion, sadhana bhakti, are conducive to the realizations of loving devotion, than whom there is no superior well-being, who goes hand in hand with the attainment of the exclusive state of supreme bliss, and who can lead to myself.
Abandoning all meritorious performances, serve me with faith. The realization will correspond to the nature of one's faith. The people of the world act ceaselessly in pursuance of some ideal. By meditating on me by means of those deeds, one will obtain devotion characterized by love in the shape of the supreme service. Listen, O Vidhi, I am the seed, that is, the fundamental principle of this world of animate and inanimate objects. I am pradhana, the substance of matter. I am prakriti, material cause, and I am purusha, efficient cause. This fiery energy that belongs specially to the Brahman that inheres in you has also been conferred by me. It is by bearing this fiery energy that you regulate this phenomenal world of animate and inanimate objects. How's everybody feeling? Do we need to sing a song first, or? Yes. Okay. Did anyone, before we do that, did anyone have a verse that we read through that sort of jumped out at you as something you wanted to discuss this morning?
Not a verse exactly, but I just wanted to ask, so Brahma, in this Brahma Samhita text, how it says, so Brahma, when he gets up from sleep, he cannot understand anything, and then Goddess of Learning Saraswati comes and tell him that you chant this mantra, and then he meditates on that mantra for maybe like thousands of years. Yes. And then Gayatri, she comes as the flute song,
yes.
So after that, does Brahma see Krishna, or is it Mahavishnu?
It's Krishna, the cowherd boy.
Okay.
Yeah, this of course, this happens every day of Brahma. Mm-hmm. So Brahma lives for 100 years, and there's 360 days in each year. So this is happening over and over again, and in different kalpas it happens a little bit differently. But the story is told in the 9th chapter, the 8th and 9th chapter, 7th and 9th chapter of the 2nd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam also, about how in the very beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, when Shukadev Goswami first starts explaining Bhagavatam to King Parikshit, he tells about how Lord Brahma was first initially initiated by Krishna. Mm-hmm. And in the 9th chapter, there are the 4 seed verses, verse 33 through 36, which are the bija, the seed of the whole Srimad Bhagavatam. And then Lord Brahma is being asked by his son Narada Muni about this, and he tells him how Krishna came to him. And our acharyas have commented that it was actually not, of course Brahma is born on the lotus that grows out of the navel of Garbhadakshay Vishnu. But when he was initiated and he saw Krishna face to face, and it describes how he saw Krishna. But our acharyas say that this was actually Krishna, the cowherd boy with the flute. But he saw Krishna seated on a throne at first, and Krishna reached over and shook his hand. Yeah. Yeah, you haven't read that part? So this is, I think today's class, the theme of today's class is reading Srimad Bhagavatam. So we're going to try to get everyone started to read some, a manageable amount of Bhagavatam, but do it daily, every day as part of your regular function. But this is the beginning of our sampradaya. Particularly, we are in the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya sampradaya, and we're receiving knowledge from Vyasadeva, who received it from Narada Muni, who received it from his father, Lord Brahma, who received it directly from Krishna. And that was the starting of our sampradaya. And then much later, well, actually, even when Narada became Vyasadeva was the son of Parashara Muni, and he was born toward the end of the Dwapara Yuga. So it's, of course, these are eternal things. There's an eternal. Sometimes we think, oh, it's just someone who was only born recently. It's only a small blip in the time of Lord Brahma. But also anything related to Krishna has an eternal existence. All these devotees. I was just reading about that. Uddhava. I'm reading in the 3rd canto. And Uddhava is one of Krishna's dear associates. And he's there during Krishna's pastimes, and Krishna is preparing to depart the world. And he tells Uddhava, well, Uddhava follows him. Uddhava won't won't go away from him, so Uddhava follows him. And then he gives him instructions, which are in the 11th canto. These instructions are elaborately presented in many chapters, 20-something, 23 chapters or something like that, called the Uddhava Gita. But in the 3rd canto, it's described that Krishna instructs him to go to, Krishna instructs him in the actual science of Krishna, which is more detailed than just the 4 verses. The 4 verses are like the basic metaphysics of how Krishna is one and different from the creation. How, like we were reading here about how the possessor of potency and the potency itself, there's no difference. It's part of one, one unified substance. And at the same time, there is a distinction to be made between potency and possessor, or between the predominated aspect of the Absolute and the predominating aspect of the Absolute. And because of that, there can be variety and qualities. And so this is all explained in those 4 seed verses. But the actual elaboration of how Krishna relates to his devotees and how his devotees live in this world and in the spiritual world, and how, that is a further science, Bhagavat Tattva Vijnanam, which is learned only by pure devotees. And Krishna instructed that science to Uddhava and told Uddhava to go up to Badarkashram, where Narayan Rishi stays and performs austerities for the benefit of the whole world. Up in the Himalayas, there's a sage, an incarnation of Godhead. Narayan Rishi is 2, God and his devotee. And they're performing austerities. And these austerities are for the auspiciousness of the whole world. So Brahma instructed Uddhava to go up there. And at the time, he called him O Vasu. He told Uddhava, O Vasu. So in the purport, it says that Uddhava was one of the 8 Vasus. They're demigods. But not Uddhava himself, but just a plenary portion of Uddhava had manifested as one of the Vasus. The actual Uddhava exists eternally in Dwarka Dhama as Krishna's eternal associate. And so these beings are timeless, even though they appear to be born at a certain time. Just like Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Janma karma chame divyam evang yo veti tattvataha tyaktva dehang punar janma nayati mameti sorjuna. He says anyone who knows in tattva, who really knows scientifically how his birth and his activities and his in this world are actually transcendental. They're not like ordinarily everything that goes on in this world goes on according to the laws of nature, right? There's a cause and an effect, and everything happens according to laws of physics and laws of karma and laws of the interaction of the modes of nature, and these things are ordained, impersonal laws that are ordained. Nature is working under Krishna's direction, but she has her own ways of working. And but Krishna's activities are not like that. Nobody makes him, he doesn't take birth as the son of Vasudeva because that was his karma and Yamaraj assigned him that birth. By his own sweet will, by his own energies, he manifests his transcendental forms on earth and appears like that. So similarly, his associates, his eternal associates like Arjuna and Radharani and Mother Yashoda and Bhishma Dev is also one of the Vasus. And this it's explained in the Mahabharata, the story of how there was a curse because someone stole a Kamadhenu cow or something like that, and these Vasus were cursed to take birth as the children of Ganga, and she killed one after the other so that they could immediately go back to their station in the heaven. The Vasus are assistants of Lord Indra. They are fire. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says of the 8 Vasus, he is fire, Pavakas Chasmi. Vasunang Pavakas Chasmi, which is Agni. But fire, sky, space, earth, not water for some reason, but the sun, the moon, and the stars are the Vasus. And they have different names. At different times in different scriptures, they're named a little differently. And actually, Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda were partially represented in the heavenly planets as a Vasu named Drona and his wife named Dara. And they were told by Lord Brahma to take birth as Krishna's mother and father, foster mother and father in Vrindavan. So I went off on a tangent, but this story of how Brahma was first initiated is told in the 2nd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and it's also repeated here. And if there are little discrepancies in the way they're told in different parts of the Bhagavatam also, and in different Puranas, and if there are little discrepancies, Srila Prabhupada says in one purport, it should be understood that this is going on repeatedly over and over again, and they're not always talking about the exact same kalpa. Okay, so let's sing the Nama Kirtan. What we usually do the other song for dawn. I saw the sun coming up this morning on the way down here. The days are getting longer again. Jai. Gets too much darkness when the days are so short in the winter. The Sri Nama Kirtan is page 65. The nature of Krishna's abode is that everything there is made of pure consciousness, and there's no need for the sun or the moon or any other fire or electric lights in order to illuminate everything. It's all self-luminous. But here in the material world, the nature of matter is that it's darkness. It's not conscious. It's not active. It needs to be activated by the contact of something alive, and it's by nature it's dark. So we need the sun to keep everything light. Jashomati Nandana Brajabaro Nagara Gokula Ranjana Kana Jashomati Nandana Brajabaro Nagara Gokula Ranjana Kana Gopi Parana Dhana Madana Manohara Gopi Parana Dhana Madana Manohara Kaliyadamana Vidhana Kaliyadamana Vidhana Amala Harinama Miya Vilasa Amala Harinam Amiya Bilasa Vipina Purandara Navina Nagara Bora Vangshi Vadana Subhasa Vipina Purandara Navina Nagara Bara Vangshi Vadana Subhasa Raja Jana Palana Sura Kula Nashana Rajajana Palana Surakula Nashana Nanda Godhana Rakoala Nanda Godhana Rakoala Govinda Madhava Navanita Tashkara Govinda Madhava Navanita Tashkara Sundarananda Gopala Sundarananda Gopala Yashomati Nandana Brajabara Nagara Gokula Ranjana Kana Yamuna Tatachara Gopi Vashanahara Yamuna Tatachara Gopi Vashanahara Rasa Rasika Kripa Moya Rasa Rasika Kripa Moya Shri Radha Vallabha Vrindavana Natabara Shri Radha Vallabha Vrindavana Natabara Bhakati Vinoda Shraya Bhakati Vinoda Shraya Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So it was the cowherd boy form of Krishna who spoke to Lord Brahma. And we can tell in Brahma Samhita how when Lord Brahma finally, in his enlightenment, he worshipped Krishna with his hymn, it's Govinda Madi Purusham. He's talking about the cowherd boy and how he stays in Goloka and he's attended by gopis.
No, actually, at the end, it says, Atho Vacha Mahavishnu. So I was thinking that,
Uh-huh.
that's why I was confused. Is it Mahavishnu he's seeing or Krishna? That's what.
Yeah, it does say that Atho Vacha, then Mahavishnu. Well, Mahavishnu is contained in Krishna. Let's read that verse. Huh? We need a purport, right? Yeah, we'll read it. Let's see.
I think one thing we should look to read all the purports is
Well, to read it all in one day would take a lot, and it is a kind of a
well, it's so deep, it's just so hard to
exactly. It's very deep and technical, and it presented in scientific language that's a little hard to understand. So, Atho Vacha Mahavishnur. Please repeat after me. Atho Vacha Mahavishnur. Bhagavantam Prajapatim. This is on page 105, verse 57. Brahman Mahatva Vijnane. Prajasarge Chachenmatihi. Panchashloki Mimang Vidyang. Vatsadattang Nibodhame. Word meanings. Atha. Then. Uvacha. Said. Mahavishnuhu. The Supreme Lord. Bhagavantam. Unto the glorious. Prajapatim. Lord Brahma. Brahman. O Brahma. Mahatva. Of the glory of Godhead. Vijnane. In real knowledge. Prajasarge. In creating offspring. Cha. And. Chet. If. Matihi. The inclination. Panchashlokim. 5 shlokas. Imam. This. Vidyam. Science. Vatsa. O beloved. Dattam. Given. Nibodha. Here. May. From me. Translation. On hearing these hymns containing the essence of the truth, the Supreme Lord Krishna said to Brahma, Brahma, if you experience the inclination to create offspring by being endowed with the real knowledge of the glory of Godhead, listen, my beloved, from me to this science set forth in the following 5 shlokas. Purport. The Supreme Lord became propitious when Brahma, with great eagerness, chanted the names Krishna and Govinda, expressive of the form, attribute, and pastimes. Brahma was actuated by the desire for mundane creation. Krishna then said to Brahma how pure, unalloyed devotion can be practiced by souls engaged in worldly occupations, by combining the same with the desire for carrying out the behest of the Supreme Lord. The knowledge absolute is knowledge of the glory of Godhead. If you want to procreate offspring, being endowed with such knowledge, listen attentively to the science of devotion that is contained in the following 5 shlokas. How bhakti is practiced by performing worldly duties in the form of carrying out the commands of the Supreme Lord is being described. So in the translation it says Supreme Lord Krishna, but in the actual Sanskrit it says Mahavishnu, which is associated with the Purusha form of Krishna who creates the material universes from the pores of his skin. But the Acharyas are teaching us in the Srimad Bhagavatam that Lord Brahma was actually initiated directly by Krishna Govinda. And in the purport here it says that Govinda became propitious. That is, he wanted to grant the boon, the request. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, when we hear the story, Lord Brahma is very concerned that he remains humble. He says, please inspire me to create the universe, but in doing so, don't let me forget that I'm just a small servant. And, Brahma is the guna avatar, that is, of the quality of passion. There's 3 qualities in material nature. Everything that's material has a beginning, a middle, and an end. The beginning is passion. The middle, or the sustenance, maintenance, is goodness, which is eternal. And, well, pure goodness is eternal, but material goodness is not eternal. Anything material is not. And the destruction is darkness, tamaguna, which is the essential nature of the material world. And the avatar of destruction or of tamaguna is Lord Shiva. He's the aspect of Krishna, as was described, who is the husband of the material energy. And the union of Lord Shiva with his Shakti, Parvati, creates the faculty of perverted cognition, where souls can be in ignorance and identify with material nature. And they create they pervade the whole material universe. So he's the Maheshwara. Lord Shiva is the great Lord of the universe. And Lord Brahma is associated with creation, and he's in charge of creating all the dynasties of all the demigods and all the demons, all the different planets and the planetary systems and all their populations. And he's inspired to create something and to procreate. And in the third canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, in great detail, the description of how he performs this secondary act of creation. The primary creation is how the Lord creates the universes, Mahavishnu, and glances over them, and becomes these three Purusha avatars, Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshay Vishnu, and the Kshirodakshay Vishnu, who is the super soul in everyone's heart, and he animates the world. So in the end, in the last verse, Krishna talks about the material nature itself, pradhan, and the material cause, prakriti, and the efficient cause, purusha. And if you read like Aristotelian philosophy, also in Greek philosophy, they talk about different causes. A lump of clay is the material cause, prakriti, and then with potter is the efficient cause who turns it into a vase. And there may be a final cause, or telos, in Greek philosophy, which is, that the vase is used for carrying water, so it's got a purpose. And there are these different causes that are there. So Lord Brahma is praying for this inspiration to be able to create the universe. But he's not the supreme God. He's still praying. In fact, Narada Muni asks him, I see that you perform austerities. Who's superior to you? Who do you worship? And now he's telling us, I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who's a cowherd boy who dances with gopis. And he has these qualities. It's not some abstract thing, I saw a Christian tract with a picture of like a big throne, and there's a person sitting on the throne, but he has no face because, he can't have any quality. Or the Muslims are very concerned about making any kind of personal depiction of God, because they feel that would limit him and insult him by making him seem less than the greatest. Even the prophet shouldn't be they shouldn't make pictures of the prophet in their culture. But even in Christianity, they say, hallowed be thy name. I heard Prabhupada saying that, in the Lord's Prayer, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. So he has a name. Why should he not have a name, a mother and father, friends, a place of residence, different things that he does for fun, different likes and dislikes, and so forth? If he didn't have these things, he would be less than us. So the Absolute Truth has his impersonal feature, as is described here in the Brahma Samhita, which are like the rays of his body, because he pervades everything and he's everywhere by the expansion of his energy. There's nothing that's outside of the scope of God's jurisdiction. And yet, the material nature, by its nature, is the shadow that people want to see when they want to ignore him and turn away from him and turn their back on him. So he even allows that illusion of forgetfulness that he's not there. And yet he has his own pastimes, and they're unlimited. because he's unlimited, he has unlimited personalities, and he assumes different forms and personalities just to associate with different devotees who desire to serve him in those different ways. So it's not some limitation on him. But all these forms are transcendental, and they can't be understood by just by logic and philosophy, but they're understood through devotion. Therefore, Krishna selected Uddhava because of his purity of devotion, that he was the personality who could understand this paramastitihi, this science of what Krishna's own activities are, and who his friends are, what he likes, and what he takes pleasure in, and what his different qualities are, his name, form, associates, pastimes, rasas, that is the emotions, his emotional life is described and known only to the devotees, not to the mystic yogis who just practice control of the senses and meditation. I met, when I was on book distribution in Santa Cruz one time, I met this yogi, and he was kind of, I met him like about once every 6 months. I was meeting him, and we had a kind of exchange where he would always come up to me, and he always felt like, you know, you guys are out there like proselytizing, sort of like born-again Christians, you know, you're out there selling your books, and you want people to take your books, and, you know, I don't need it, I'm already a yogi, and I don't need your books. And I was trying to say, no, it's not like that. It's a part of our yoga tradition to actually hear about Krishna's pastimes, to hear it in parampara, in disciplic succession. And this hearing is beneficial, and the devotees like to hear. But his idea, he said, but I already know Krishna. I have a picture of Krishna by my bed, and I meditate on Krishna all the time. And I was saying, well, but if you meditate on Krishna, but then now Krishna wants to show you more about himself, about what he did when he was on earth, and who his mother is, and who his father is, and how he killed the different demons and all that stuff. And then your meditation can become... But he didn't have that idea because he was a yogi. He wanted to meditate on Krishna sort of statically standing there, you know. And so we had this kind of friendly exchange several times. So the yogis who, who still have some impersonal tendency to want to merge with Krishna, and they want to have knowledge, but they don't have devotion, enough devotion. It has to be mixed with some devotion, or they wouldn't have the strength to even concentrate their mind and meditate. But when you have pure devotion, then Krishna reveals himself in a very mystical way, that he reveals that he is a person. Just like he could stand in front of you and talk to you and shake your hand like he did to Lord Brahma. So Lord Brahma wanted to create the universe, and you would say, well, this is an activity, some kind of material activity. Why didn't he want to just become, a meditator and sit still and just think of Krishna's pastimes? But instead he wanted to, he had some duty to do, some activity. I was hearing, Srila Prabhupada was talking on the way, I was driving down here, and Srila Prabhupada often mentions this about the Bhagavad Gita, that Krishna spoke to Arjuna the whole science of Krishna consciousness. And in fact, he told Arjuna in the conclusion that you should just completely surrender to me and take shelter of nothing else and don't worry about anything else. If you satisfy me, you've satisfied all requirements and everything. But Krishna never told Arjuna you should give up your duties in the world, actually. That's what Krishna wanted Arjuna to do. He wanted Arjuna to perform as a kshatriya and a householder and fight this battle and then reign over the kingdom. And he wanted Arjuna... Krishna had been asked by the demigods to come... The earth was being overburdened by dynasties of demons. We were just singing in this song, Asura Kula Nashana. So Kula is like the family or the dynasty of these Asuras. And they had their own armies, and they had their own, sort of governments and everything in different parts of the world. And they were, very proud and impious. And the earth wanted them to be cleansed, wanted them to be killed, basically. And cleansed, because when Krishna killed them, he liberated them. He didn't hurt them, actually. Whatever Krishna does is for everyone's benefit. but it was for their benefit that he was killing them. Just like these Vasus or demigods, and then there were 8 of them, and one of them who had stolen the cow, Dios. Sounds like Zeus to me. I think he was like the Vasu of, I forget which one he was, the Vasu of sky or something like that. But Dios. He, all of them, when they were punished, when they were cursed by the sage, it was Vasishta. It was his cow. And then he found out that they had stolen it, and he cursed them, that you have to take birth as mortals on earth, as humans on earth. And they said, oh no, please be merciful to us. We didn't do it. It was our elder brother, Dios, Well, I don't know exactly what they said. They probably were more noble than that. I made them sound a little childish. But because of their pleas of mercy, he said, okay, you have to take birth on earth, but just for a short time, and then you can immediately... And they also asked, can goddess Ganga, the goddess of the Ganges River, be their mother? And he said, okay. But then he said, but Dios had to remain. So what happened was that Ganga had married Shantanu, but she's a goddess, and he's a human king. So she said, I will consent to marry a mortal human, but only if he never contradicts me. And he said, okay, I love you so much. Whatever you say, I will never contradict you. So they married. And then, after some time, they had a child, and she immediately took the child into the river and threw him in the water. And he couldn't say anything about it because he had this vow not to contradict her. So she was murdering their babies, but actually she was just liberating them and sending them back to heaven. So after 7 sons were killed that way, when she had an 8th child, he said, dear wife, don't kill this child too. And then she said, I told you couldn't contradict me, and then she left. And she left him the baby. So that baby became Bhishmadev. And then he became like the grandsire of all the Kurus and Pandavas. So Krishna wanted Arjuna to surrender to him, but he didn't want Arjuna to become a yogi and go to the forest. He said that the yogi who does his work without attachment and in devotion to me is the greatest of all yogis. His mind is more naturally controlled and more perfectly controlled. And also he said, the common people can't do that anyway. So you have to set a good example. Loka sangraham. You have to set an example for the good of the welfare of the people. There's a difference between imitation and following, right? We can follow the footsteps of Haridas Thakur, who always chanted Hare Krishna. He was chanting like 200 rounds a day. We struggled to chant 16 rounds a day, but he was chanting 200 rounds a day, which would take us, we could never finish. If we tried to chant 194 rounds or whatever he was doing, we could try and we wouldn't have any time to sleep practically, right? To chant 64 takes us 8 hours, or 6.5 or 7 hours at least. And yet he was chanting that many, and he was hardly sleeping and hardly eating, and take very little time for his maintenance and what he was doing. So we can't imitate that example. We're not meant to. We don't have and even if we did imitate, even if we did do that for some time, we would just be doing it while we were chanting. We'd be thinking, everyone must think I'm really a great saint. I'm really, I wonder what, or what, you're thinking about. I wonder what that person is thinking, or I wonder what they're saying about me, or, whatever. It would be fake. You'd be a pretender. So Krishna doesn't want that of us. He says it's better to engage your senses under regulation so that you can gradually become detached from material desires and become more and more attached to always thinking of me, becoming my devotee, worshiping me. And in the meantime, you don't have to give up being a computer engineer or a salesman in a grocery store or whatever you are. You don't have to give up whatever you're doing. You just have to add this Krishna consciousness. Yeah, you can give up certain things. You probably should give up going out to the bar and drinking alcohol and dancing and these other things which are bad for your progressive spiritual life. Give up eating meat, and so forth. And so you can live a peaceful, simple life, so you can practice Krishna consciousness. Mukaravinda, will you get me the second canto? So Brahma wanted to do something. He wanted to create. He had a duty to do. He wanted to create the planets and the demigods and in the universe. Even in one day of Brahma, there's 14 manus. So each manu lives for the length of time of 78 cycles of Satya Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, Treta Yuga, and Kali Yuga. So it takes a very long time. Do we have the system where you could put a verse up on the board? Put up chapter 8, verse 3. So he had some duty to do, and Krishna was explaining to him that that's okay. This is how you can do. If you want to create progeny, create offspring, the essence of material life really is family life, right? The essence, material desire, the strongest attachment, the central attachment is sex desire, and the desire to really, it's properly used to procreate another generation of pious, God-conscious children that can be offered to Krishna in that way, and Krishna is satisfied and accepts it when your children grow up to be responsible, good citizens who are devotees, and then Krishna is very satisfied with that. So, and that's the proper use. So, Krishna engaged his devotee, Lord Brahma, in activity. He didn't tell Lord Brahma to give up this foolish desire to create offspring. Why do you desire to create offspring? You should be a brahmachari and just practice self. Of course, Brahma could create offspring with his mind also. He didn't have to just have sexual procreation. But he created, like Swayambhuva Manu was created out of his own body. That's why he's called Swayambhuva. He was self-born. But he created this process of reproduction that the Prajapatis that are under him, Kashyapa and so forth, they gave birth, they were married and gave birth to the different generations of demigods and demons and humans. The Manus are the progenitors of mankind, and they practice this, sacred marriage, and there's no sex outside of marriage, and it's designed to have a pious, wholesome family life, but at the same time, it's not just for dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. In the beginning of this, we were talking about how there's Goloka, the realm of Krishna, is like a lotus flower, and all the petals are different gopis, and then it's surrounded by this mysterious quadrangular place called Shvetadvipa, and in the four corners of this Shvetadvipa are Vasudev, Sankarshan, Aniruddha, and Pradyumna, the Chaturvyuha expansions of the Lord. And outside of that, they're enveloped by the fourfold human requirements, which are dharma, righteousness, doing one's duty, artha, getting prosperity, money, whatever you need to get your food and your shelter and your clothing and stuff, kama, and with that material, economic prosperity, one also can satisfy desires for sense enjoyment. And finally, moksha, liberation. So these are the four human requirements that everyone has. And they need some sense enjoyment just to keep body and soul together. But Srimad Bhagavatam says that we should try to minimize our sense enjoyment, and we should turn our attention towards something higher, which is understanding the absolute truth. So, kamasya nendriya pritir labho jiveta yavata jivasya tattva jigyasa narto yasheha karma bihi. We have this human form of life. Animals can have sense enjoyment too. They can have good food and suited for what their senses are like. They have food and sex and other things. They have material happiness. But human beings are meant for developing one's consciousness in a much higher way. Humans can have philosophy, humans can have devotion, humans can have a greater scope for doing something higher in consciousness. So Srimad Bhagavatam says we shouldn't waste our time in the human life just pursuing what can be easily had by dogs in the street or hogs or whatever. In the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, King Rishabhadev, who's actually an incarnation of God, he says, Nayang deho deha pajang nriloke kashtan kaman arhati vidbhujamye. Vidbhuja means those who eat stool. So he's talking about pigs. You know, pigs can wander in the side of the road where the open sewers are, and they get very healthy by eating the stool of the different people that are going in the sewer. So he says that can be had, material enjoyment can be had even by pigs. So he said, my sons, he was instructing his 100 sons, he said, don't waste your human form of life for that kind of fleeting pleasure that is had by all kind of species, by the senses contacting their objects. But what then? He said, tapo divyam putrika yena sattvam shudyat yasmad brahma sokyam tunantam. There's a kind of unlimited happiness, brahma sokyam, that comes from contact with spirit, and that it's attained by transcendental austerity, by controlling the senses, actually accepting some things that may be uncomfortable. To recognize we're not this body. Like on certain days we're required to fast, and we should rise early and take a cold shower. We might not at first want to do that because, there's these yamas and niyamas, the requirements, things that are required to do and things that we're prohibited from doing. And at first it might be pinch a little bit, so the expert spiritual master gives you what's required, but in a way that you can practice it, the way that you can follow it, so that you can gradually be properly trained. Krishna doesn't recommend artificially pretending to be a great yogi, but he calls them pretenders. Right? If you restrain your sense objects, what's in the 3rd chapter, he says that one who restrains the sense objects, but in their mind they're still dwelling on the senses, is mityachara sa uchyate. And he says it's better in the beginning, to regulate the senses by engaging them properly in karma yoga, doing your duty but offering it to Krishna. So, we were in chapter 8. I was asked to speak about daily reading, and I was looking for a verse that I had recently read. I didn't find it, but almost any verse in the early parts of Srimad Bhagavatam, all over the Bhagavatam, are talking about the glories of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. So, text number 3, let's recite it together. Katayasva, Katayasva, Mahabhaga, Katayasva Mahabhaga, Yataham, Akhilatmani, Yataham Akhilatmani, Krishne, Niveshya, Nisangam, Krishne Niveshya Nisangam, Manas Tyakshe Kalevaram, Manas Tyakshe Kalevaram, Katayasva Mahabhaga, Yataham Akhilatmani, Krishne Niveshya Nisangam, Manas Tyakshe Kalevaram, Katayasva Mahabhaga, Yataham Akhilatmani, Krishne Niveshya Nisangam, Manas Tyakshe Kalevaram.
Kathayasya mahabhaga
Katayasva mahabhaga
yathaham akhilatmani
yataham akilatmani
Krishne nivesya nisangam
Krishne nivesha nisangam
manastyakshe kalevaram.
Manastyakshe kalevaram.
Kathahasya mahabhaga
Katayasva mahabhaga
yatham akhilatmati
yataham akilatmani
Krishne nivesyasya nihasangam
Krishne nivesha nisangam
manastyakshat kalevaram
Manastyakshe kalevaram.
Kathayasva mahabhaga
Katayasva mahabhaga
yathaham akhilatmani
yataham akilatmani
Krishne nivesya nihsangam
Krishne nivesha nisangam
manastvakshe kalevaram.
Manastyakshe kalevaram. Carlos? I'm sorry, what's your name again? Chittahari Prabhu, yeah.
Katayasva mahabhaga
Katayasva mahabhaga
yataham akilatmani
yataham akilatmani
Krishne nivesya nisangam
Krishne nivesha nisangam
manastyakshe kalevaram.
Manastyakshe kalevaram. Katayasva mahabhaga
Yathaham akhilatmani
yataham akilatmani
Krishne nivesya nisangam
Krishne nivesha nisangam
manastyakshe kalevaram.
Manastyakshe kalevaram. Word meanings. Katayasva. Please continue speaking. Mahabhaga. O greatly fortunate one. Yatha. As much as. Aham. I. Akhila. Atmani. Unto the Supreme Soul. Krishna. Unto Lord Sri Krishna. Nivesya. Having placed. Nisangam. Being freed from material qualities. Manaha. Mind. Tyakshe. May relinquish. Kalevaram. Body. So this is King Parikshit speaking. O greatly fortunate Shukadev Goswami, please continue narrating Srimad Bhagavatam so that I can place my mind upon the Supreme Soul, Lord Krishna, and, being completely freed from material qualities, thus relinquish this body. Please repeat. O greatly fortunate Shukadeva Goswami, please continue narrating Srimad Bhagavatam so that I can place my mind upon the Supreme Soul, Lord Krishna, and, being completely freed from material qualities, thus relinquish this body. So Parikshit Maharaj had been cursed to die within 7 days, and that's why he's concerned about relinquishing his body. And he decided to set an example of taking good instruction to show how to die correctly, because all of us have to die, and it's important to do it well. It's one of the most important things that happen to you in your lifetime. So King Parikshit he renounced his kingdom, put it in the care of his competent son, and he went to the banks of the Ganges, or the Jamuna, because he was in Hastinapur, so it should be Jamuna, but it says the Ganges. So maybe his kingdom had a capital on the Ganges, I think Srila Prabhupada explains that the Jamuna was also called the Ganges at that time, or something like that. There's some explanation. But he went there, and all the sages were assembled, and then Shukadev Goswami appeared there, and they all recognized him as the most highly qualified to answer the questions of the king. And so he was hearing about the pastimes of Krishna, who was a friend of his grandfather Arjuna, and he was preparing to die, and Shukadeva Goswami was congratulating him that he had asked about these things. What is the duty of every human being, and especially of a human who's about to die? And Shukadeva Goswami said, this is an important question, and one should remember Krishna at the time of death. And this is the duty. And in order to do that, one can go on hearing more and more about Krishna. So this discussion is going on. And that's why he's asking about this, relinquishing his body. And one thing that I wanted to say before we read the purport, that we see by reading Srimad Bhagavatam how the devotees live and how they meet each other and talk to each other and interact. And one thing is that they don't talk very nonchalantly, like, hey, how's it going? What's up? What are you doing? I'm just chilling, But they actually go and they talk about Krishna, and they praise each other, the qualities. Oh, you have the qualities to talk about Krishna because you're very fortunate that you constantly engage in devotional activities, and therefore you can disclose the truth about, why it is that Krishna appeared in the Yadu dynasty and performed wonderful activities. This is the kind of wonderful discussions they have, and they're always offering beautiful prayers. So when we read Srimad Bhagavatam, we're hearing the crystallized realizations of these devotees as they pray to one another and they pray to Krishna, and how they, in pure devotion, how they meet the challenges that they experience in life. Probably one of the biggest challenges we might experience is being cursed to die in 7 days. And how did King Parikshit, as an exemplary devotee, show how he met that challenge? And he went and he got a very expert guru, Shukadeva Goswami, and he asked him about Krishna's pastimes. So let's read the purport by Srila Prabhupada. To be fully engaged in hearing the transcendental narration described in the text of Srimad Bhagavatam means to constantly associate with the Supreme Soul, Sri Krishna. And to constantly associate with the Supreme Lord Krishna means to be liberated from the qualities of matter. Lord Krishna is like the sun, and material contamination is like darkness. As the presence of the sun dissipates darkness, constant engagement in the association of the Lord Sri Krishna frees one from the contamination of the material qualities. Contamination by the material qualities is the cause of repeated birth and death, and liberation from material qualities is transcendence. Maharaj Parikshit was now a realized soul by this secret of liberation through the grace of Shukadeva Goswami, for the latter had informed the king that the highest perfection of life is to be in remembrance of Narayana at the end of life. Narayana, of course, another name for Krishna. Maharaj Parikshit was destined to give up his body at the end of 7 days, and thus he decided to continue remembering the Lord by his association with the topics of Srimad Bhagavatam, and thus to quit his body in full consciousness of the presence of the Lord Sri Krishna, the Supreme Soul. The hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam, performed by professional men, is different from the transcendental hearing of Maharaj Parikshit. Maharaj Parikshit was a soul realized in the absolute truth, Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. The fruitive materialist is not a realized soul. He wants to derive some material benefit from his so-called hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam. There's a tradition of people doing Bhagavat Shaptahas where they get someone who's very expert and who's memorized the verses of Bhagavatam and can sing in beautiful tunes, and they have like a big party for 7 days and nights while this person recites the Srimad Bhagavatam, and people come there and they hear it, but their mood is, I'm doing a pious performance and then I can go on and back to my regular life and enjoy happiness, and I've done something that was will give me good merit. But if the performer who's reciting and the hearer who's listening aren't pure devotees, then the real transmission of Srimad Bhagavatam doesn't actually take place. Undoubtedly, such an audience, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from the professional men, can derive some material benefit as they desire. But that does not mean such a pretense of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam for a week is as good as the hearing of Maharaj Parikshit. It is the duty of the sane to hear Srimad Bhagavatam from a self-realized soul and not be duped by professional men. One should continue such hearing till the end of one's life so that one can actually have the transcendental association of the Lord and thus be liberated simply by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Maharaj Parikshit had already given up all his connections with his kingdom and family, the most attractive features of materialism, but still he was conscious of his material body. He wanted to be free from such bondage also by the constant association of the Lord. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militang Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitang Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vande Aham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupang Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitang Tang Sujivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitangscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. It is the duty of the sane man to hear Srimad Bhagavatam from a self-realized soul and not be duped by professional men. One should continue such hearing till the end of one's life, so that one can actually have the transcendental association of the Lord, and thus be liberated simply by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. So the devotees of Krishna, the pure devotees of Krishna, advanced devotees, they can't stand to be out of Krishna's association for even a moment. The gopis, they cursed Lord Brahma for creating the material body in such a way that the eyelids have to blink, because when their eyelids were blinking, they couldn't keep staring at Krishna. The devotees have that feeling that even a moment outside of Krishna's association is unbearable. And by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam or chanting Krishna's name, one actually is in association of Krishna. When you hear the descriptions of Krishna from his devotees, that is the way given for us to actually associate with Krishna. So we're in this Krishna consciousness movement. Srila Prabhupada gave us all the things we needed. And one of the things, he gave us that we chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra at least 16 rounds a day. And during this chanting of Krishna's names, it's a very deep, this japa meditation is a very deep way of meditating, going deeply into getting past our mind and our material consciousness and getting deeply in touch directly with Krishna, who's non-different from his name. But alongside of that chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, Lord Chaitanya advised that we have to hear Srimad Bhagavatam regularly. Regularly means every day. So part of our sadhana in ISKCON is that we have a daily Srimad Bhagavatam class. And when the devotees in the 70s, when I joined the movement, we all lived together in the temple. And every morning we would have the morning program. So you get up at least by 4 in the morning and get showered and get your tilak on and get ready and brush your teeth and shave and whatever, and get showered, and come and then greet the deities with the Mangala Arati at 4:30, and then there would be Tulsi Puja and Japa period, and you would chant the Japa for 2 hours, and there would be the greeting the deities and the Srimad Bhagavatam class, and so there was a daily Srimad Bhagavatam class as part of the morning program, and we'd have 1 hour of Srimad Bhagavatam class with questions and answers, and in the evening program we'd go out and do our duties, mostly either going out to chant in the streets or going out to distribute books and tell people, why don't you take these books about Krishna, and so forth. And then we'd come home and shower and put on our tilak and get ready and go into the temple room, and then we'd have the evening arati and Bhagavad Gita class. And then we'd take a little bit of milk, hot milk at night, maybe with a little fruit or some light meal, while some devotee read to us usually about the pastimes of Krishna from the Krishna book. And then you could go to sleep and dream about Krishna. While we were going to sleep, we would all sleep, so all the men would be in one room and all the women would be in another room. We would sleep on the floor in sleeping bags, and someone would put on a tape recorder with Prabhupada singing about Krishna as we went to sleep. And we were always reading Nectar of Devotion and reading these things. So this is a part of our sadhana, is that we have to read every day. Or have classes together and discuss every day. How many of you are in a Chad group? 2 of you are in a Chad group. That's good. So Chad means chapter a day. And what Vaishesika has done here in this community, because we don't live together in the temple. We have jobs, we have school, we have families, we have other things. And we come here and congregate. But we get together on the phone in like a conference call every morning, and we read 1 chapter of Bhagavad Gita together. And then usually there's some discussion about 1 verse and purport. Yeah. So they'll either, they'll alternate. One day they'll read English, and one day they'll read the Sanskrit. Because these, just like we chanted the Brahma Samhita today, these Sanskrit shlokas are packed with transcendental energy. They're mantras themselves, and just by reciting them in Sanskrit also, it purifies us. And Srimad Bhagavatam is that too. There are some parts of it that are written in Sanskrit prose, but most of it, 18,000 verses long, is very beautiful poetry, full of beautiful sounds of the words and beautiful metaphors and deep philosophical import. And it's really the greatest, highest literature. And I was just hearing, I forget where, I think it was Garuda Das, challenged some Sanskrit professor that he knew, that he said, take a look at this and, tell me whether anything in English, any Shakespeare, any, F. Scott Fitzgerald, or any other kind of literature that you have can compare with this poetry. Now that you know Sanskrit and you can understand how it all fits together and how, and the professor said, no, I've come to agree that Srimad Bhagavatam is the greatest. When I was in college 30-something years ago, I took a class in Sanskrit in the German department at the University of Maryland. They didn't have, like at Berkeley, they have a South Asian Studies department, and they have Professor Goldman and his wife, Sally Sutherland, I think, and different teachers teach Sanskrit. And a lot of I remember when I was taking some adult education classes at Berkeley, there were a lot of Buddhist monks from like Sri Lanka and Theravada Buddhist countries. I especially remember Sri Lanka, but maybe also from Thailand and Burma and stuff. And they were going to the South Asian Studies department and studying Sanskrit there, because their scriptures are also based, and they're written in Prakrit, Pali or something like that, but they're based on Sanskrit language, and they also wanted access to this great literature. So, but I took in the German department, there was a professor, his name is Jerry Fleck, and he was a popular professor with the students. He was a folklorist, and he was really interested in, seeing how the Norse gods and the sagas from Scandinavia were similar to the Greco-Roman gods, and how there was all this same, and some stories were being carried across different cultures in similar ways and stuff. He would have liked that I said that the Vasu Dyaus sounded like Zeus, But he didn't really know Sanskrit. I mean, he was teaching Sanskrit. He was a philologist, and he wanted to read, the old Nordic, like if he wanted to read the Kalevapog or something in the Estonian saga, he wanted to read it in the Old Norse language, or the Iranian, Avestan, Zarathustra, the Zoroastrian scriptures or something. He wanted to learn how to read it in Avestan language, and so to do that, he would study all of these languages and learn them enough to be able to, see what's going on in their language and see how the languages are connected to each other. But he couldn't converse in the language or compose poetry in the language or just read it. The way he was teaching us to translate it with you have a dictionary next to you and you have your grammar books and it's like a cookbook method. But he was telling us, he was just trained up in that tradition of those prejudices that, the Sanskrit literature can't be as good as the, Greco-Roman literature. Virgil, the Roman poet Virgil, was able to make the greatest poetry, and it was just a prejudice, really. He hadn't really studied Srimad Bhagavatam, but I couldn't get him really that interested in Srimad Bhagavatam. But he was more interested in just the historical aspect of how Sanskrit was the basis of these other languages. So the Chad groups, they meet on the phone and they read. And so this is some daily reading that we have to do. It's part of our daily hearing. And what I've recently started to do, there's a group on Facebook. And Lacey, those of you probably remember Gauranga Kishore. Those of you who've been here for a while remember Gauranga Kishore used to live on the Bascom Avenue. He used to live in the back there, and he got married. He was preaching here at Stanford University and married one of the students, Lacey. And she's doing this. And Bhaktin Kara, another devotee from Tennessee. And there's a group of us in the group. Are you in the group? No? And what we do is we read 21 pages a day. So it's some reasonable thing that's designed that we'll read through the 12 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam in 2 years. Just reading some amount every day. And sounds like a long time to read a book, to read it for 2 years. But it's a big book. And it's just fun to keep your hand in every day. Not fun, but it's transcendental. It's like chanting your japa. It's a deep meditation that we're reading this. And we started at the first canto, part 1, verse 1. And now we're in chapter 5 of the third canto. And so it's a gradual, slow process. But it's very, I'm feeling very, very enlivened by doing it, and I recommend. And we don't read it together on the phone or anything. We read it in our spare time. And then we get on this Facebook group and we say, I liked the part where it said this, or we have some discussions, or what did Krishna mean by that? And, and they have some discussions about it. But the Srimad Bhagavatam is the postgraduate study of Bhagavad Gita. So in Bhagavad Gita, which is Vedanta, Bhakti Vedanta philosophy. It's like we were talking about the 4 seed verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam in the second canto. So Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is talking about these 5 subjects. What is Prakriti, nature? What is time? What is karma, material activities? Who is God? And who is the jivas, the individual souls? And he's explaining all this in great detail. And it's Bhakti Vedanta in terms of devotional service, that how the soul can become actually liberated from karma by becoming a devotee, pure devotee of Krishna. And how the different kinds of yogas and how they're all related to leading to pure devotion to Krishna. And at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is prepared to fight the battle. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the first canto, of course, the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam starts Janmad Yasya Yataha, which is also the beginning of the Vedanta Sutra, that the absolute truth is that from which everything emanates, exists in, and is wound up in, contained in. So beginning, middle, and end is there in the absolute truth. So this Bhagavatam is that same philosophy, and in the beginning of the narrations of Krishna's pastimes in the Bhagavatam, it begins, who can say where the first descriptions of Krishna's pastimes in the first canto begins? What's going on? Yeah. The first time that Sutta Goswami starts describing Krishna's pastimes.
Get ready to go back, no?
Huh?
Don't get ready to go back? To the spiritual world?
It's near that, but a little before that.
The sages gathered in the Naimisharanya.
Well, the sages are gathered around, but Krishna's already disappeared at that time. But then when he first starts narrating about the pastimes of Krishna, it's in chapter 7. Anyone know? Son of Drona punished.
Yeah.
So it starts at the end of the Battle of Kurukshetra, where Ashvatthama has killed Draupadi's sons, and now he's trying to kill King Parikshit in the womb. And Srila Prabhupada writes that this shows that the Srimad Bhagavatam is a continuation from Bhagavad Gita. It's this the Bhagavad Gita ends right before the battle, and the Srimad Bhagavatam carries on right after the battle. What happens then with the Pandavas, and how the Yudhishthira performs horse sacrifices, and they go out to the battlefield where Bhishma Dev is lying on the arrows, and Bhishma Dev speaks, as he does also very extensively in Mahabharata, but in Srimad Bhagavatam it's much more succinct, but he gives instructions to Yudhishthira Maharaj, and then he gives prayers to Krishna, who's standing right in front of him, as he leaves his body by his own will, and he prays about the pastimes of Krishna. And he remembers the pastimes of Krishna with the gopis, among other things. So the Srimad Bhagavatam is the postgraduate study of Bhagavad Gita, and it gives more detail about how to live a life. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains all about yoga, and karma yoga, and jnana yoga, and dhyan yoga, and he explains who he himself is as Supreme Godhead. And he tells Arjuna many, many things, culminating ultimately that the highest yoga is complete surrender to him in devotion. And in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Vyasadeva has elaborated on how the devotees who live that way, how they live and behave. And one of the things that they do, like Parikshit Maharaj is doing here, they associate with Krishna through constantly hearing about the Srimad Bhagavatam. And so while we chant our Hare Krishna every day, we also should every day be hearing about Krishna's pastimes, about Krishna's qualities. Not just his pastimes of dancing in Rasa Leela, that's in the 10th canto, but we should progress through the first 9 cantos also and hear about, because we're materialistic people still, we should hear about the universe that we see, how it was created by Krishna, and how it's related to Krishna, to his pastimes of creation, preservation, and destruction of the world. Those pastimes are also important, even though they're involved with this material world, and they're not just everything Krishna does is transcendental, but they're not just what Krishna does in his own abode when he plays among his devotees. He's doing this too, by his great compassion. He's creating a material world in order to give an opportunity for conditioned souls to act out their desires, to enjoy separately from him and to be forgetful of him. But he's also doing it in such a way that some of them can be reclaimed. So the world is created for these two purposes. He's letting them fulfill their desires for material karma, but he's also offering them an opportunity to finish material karma and take up the pure activities of liberated souls. And I think Chittahari has a question.
Like in the Bhagavatam, probably a lot of these things took place on the earth, right? Like Dhruva Maharaj, and a lot of other stories. Prahlad Prabhu, and Vamadev came down, and
some of them
Kardama Muni. I mean, I know some of the stuff took place elsewhere too, but is it pretty much from the point of Earth where we?
Some of it took place in the heavenly planets. Yeah. or, Prahlad Maharaj was one of the Daityas, so they have their planets in the lower planets. There's different, so there's 10 subjects of Srimad Bhagavatam, and one subject is called Sthanam, which means the planetary situations. There's the 10 subjects are creation, and then there's subcreation. What is it? It's. Can you say with the microphone? So it's Sarga and Visarga. Sarga means the creation of the universes by Mahavishnu and the material elements. And Visarga means the secondary process of creation by Lord Brahma of the planetary systems and so forth. And then there's Sthanam, which means the situation of the different planetary systems. This is all, and then Poshanam, the Lord Krishna's protection. The Uttanam, creative impulse. And then, what's that?
Was the impetus to create or something?
The impetus, creative impetus, Uttanam. And there's the science of God, Ishana Katha, and the duties for mankind, Manvantara, the Manus, and the prescribed duties for human civilization. And there's the winding up of the material cosmic manifestation, Nirodham. And there is liberation, Mukti. And then there's the Samam Bonam, Ashraya, the actual. And these are the different. So we have our own ascending process. Oh, Hare Krishna, Charlene. We have our own knowledge. We go to university and we learn about history and we learn about geography and we learn about astronomy and cosmography. And these are all sort of ways that we've, by empiric study, rejecting all previous religious authorities and scriptures and things like that. Humans in the so-called the Enlightenment of the 18th century began to really just like sort of study the world and compile the knowledge and practice science, right, in the 17th and 18th centuries in Europe, and sort of develop a story, an explanation of what is the material cosmic situation and how did it start, and there's cosmology. Cosmologists can have pretty far out theories, and they have different theories. They're not just like one thing, but there's expanding universe and then it's contracting and so forth. But these are all sort of speculations based on hypotheses that has to fit and meet with what we can observe with our senses and so forth. And it's different from what is given in Srimad Bhagavatam. At least what the current theories are different, but they're always changing anyway. But if we want to understand history and ethics and the science of God involves also the different incarnations of Krishna that comes at different times on earth. So these are the important parts of history. And the cosmos, how there's different planets for different levels of consciousness, for different kinds of beings that have different kinds of desires to fulfill. And Krishna gives them different situations. Like Prahlad Maharaj and his grandson Bali Maharaj were, they inhabit planets in the lower planetary systems, but they're pure devotees. But the planets are inhabited by mainly atheists. And then in the higher planetary systems where the sun and the moon and the luminary objects of the sky and so forth are the demigods that control those things are, those planets are inhabited mostly by very pious demigods who want to do, who are willing to subject themselves to the authority of Krishna. And then there's always these wars going on between the demigods and the devotees. And the science of God, how Krishna comes in his incarnation, he doesn't take sides. He only appears to be on the side of the demigods because they want him on their side, whereas the demons want to fight against him. And he's actually neutral, and when he kills the demons, he gives them liberation. So this whole science is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. So if we want to understand these things from a perspective that leads us to the lotus feet of Krishna, that leads us to being able to appreciate, once we have that sort of background knowledge of how the universe is created, how the subsequent creation takes place, and all these things, then we're prepared to appreciate the transcendental pastimes of Krishna that are presented in the 10th canto without being confused and thinking that he's just some hero, some material person that's doing wonderful, heroic things, and we love these stories. Everybody loves a good story, but this is something different. So Shukadeva Goswami says in the end of the 2nd canto that these other subjects are important so that we can, I'm trying to think of the word he uses, but we have to be able to separate out the transcendence, isolate the transcendence from material things, so that we'll be able to properly appreciate then the transcendental descriptions of Krishna's Leela. We have to get the tattva, the scientific knowledge, right? Evam yo veti tattvataha, we were talking about earlier, that we have to understand how Krishna's activities are not material. We have to understand thoroughly, then why does he do them, and what's his motivations, and what are the devotees. So all this stuff, by regular hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from a proper source, because Prabhupada has given us these purports, which are Prabhupada's own realized, ecstatic explanations, which he has digested the explanations of other acharyas like Jiva Goswami and Bhaktisiddhanta and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, going back to the original commentator named Sridhar Swami from many hundreds of years before Lord Chaitanya's time. So we're hearing it from a very authorized source, and when we hear it also in association of faithful devotees who are practicing Krishna consciousness and getting personal realization themselves, it has a very powerful effect. It goes into our hearts and it cleans away all the dirty things that are there, just like it was saying here in the purport. When the sun is present, darkness can't stay. It has to dissipate. When sunlight is present, darkness is just the absence of sunlight. So when sunlight is there, darkness can't stand in the face of sunlight. So when we're hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, we're actually associating with Krishna in this way, and our material contamination is dissipating, going away, and we can begin more and more to appreciate the pastimes of Krishna and realize Krishna. And we hear about how the devotees are realizing Krishna. Yesterday I was reading, they were referring to Krishna in one verse as Vishvamurti or something like that. And Srila Prabhupada was explaining that in this particular context, that it doesn't mean that when the devotee sees abstractly how Krishna is everywhere, he stops seeing how Krishna is a person, but actually he sees the personal Krishna everywhere, in all parts of creation. And I was like, when I was reading that, it kind of thrilled me to think of how are the great devotees who have great realization and who live their lives as we read about in Srimad Bhagavatam, how are they actually seeing things, and how are they actually, because they're very, very happy. They're enjoying life with a great thrill at every moment of their association with Krishna. And they can't stop remembering Krishna. That means they're liberated. Jivan, did we read that in this purport? No, I don't think it was in this purport, but it was in another similar purport about the verse, Ihayasya harer dasye jivan mukta sa uchite. That someone who's always engaged in devotional service is liberated, even in this life, even with the material body. Here, Parikshit Maharaj is talking about giving up the body. That I want to hear Srimad Bhagavatam and be ready to give up the body. But even while moving with this body, and there are many verses in Srimad Bhagavatam where the devotees are praising other devotees and saying that you pure devotees, you wander like ascetics all around the earth just to benedict everybody with hearing about the science of Krishna and hearing about the pastimes of Krishna and the knowledge of Krishna. So we have bodies also, we can use them for Krishna's service. At one time, Sanatana Goswami, Lord Chaitanya's servant, one of the great 6 Goswamis, was feeling, he had sores all over his body. He had gotten some infection while he was wandering with no money. He had to traveling, walking through a forest, and he had drank some contaminated water, and he had running and infections from his body, and he was always feeling himself very contaminated, and if someone touched him, they would have to go take a bath. And Lord Chaitanya was always trying to grab him and embrace him and hug him, and he felt very ashamed that, Lord Chaitanya will be touching this pus coming out of my sores. And he wanted to commit suicide. And Lord Chaitanya said, no, you have a body that you already gave your body to me. When you surrendered to me, you already gave me control of your body, so you don't have any right to commit I have things I want to do through you. I want to write all these books, and I want to establish all these holy places, and I want to do these things through you. So you don't have any right to jump under the Rath Yatra car and let Krishna crush your body like that. So, any comments, questions, discussions about making a practical program? Even if you read 5 pages a day, but if you do it daily, it's more important to do it constantly and steadily with the goal of making your life into Srimad Bhagavatam than it is to go for a 7-day recital, as a pious performance, some fruitive activity, Hindu performance of, and then you say, oh, I did a sacrifice. I went to a 7-day recital by someone who wasn't even following the regular principles of devotional service. Chitta Hari Prabhu.
That includes the purports too, right? When we read the Bhagavatam,
yes,
word for word, like every single thing, because I did that, and it took me like 7 years.
Yeah.
But I did it in a way that I didn't want to read too fast. That's why it took as long as it did, And I'm start over again, and it's like more things are popping out at me because, of course, I can't remember everything, But
so how did it feel to read the whole Bhagavatam? How did it influence you?
Oh man, it felt great. I remember when I first I got the first set was the 30-book one. And
30 volume set.
Yeah, 30 volume set. So
now they have an 18 volume set, but they're big volumes.
Yeah, so I read all that, and I was with Chakradari that day when I finished it, because I always carried my book with me wherever I went, and I was kind of like in between where I was living. I was working on the road and stuff, so I was carrying my Bhagavatam. I was on the last one, so when I finished it, it was in the presence of Chakradari, and we're like, just looked at each other like, dang, it was...
After 7 years.
Yeah, and then I found out that there was more Bhagavatam books, 11th and 12th canto.
Oh, you finished the 10th canto, I see.
Yeah, so I went and bought the other Bhagavatam set, and I read another 14 books to finish it off. And that really felt good, I was like, wow. So I had to start over again because,
Yeah,
and it's just so much. It's too much to absorb, and even in one lifetime, So you just got to keep reading and reading and reading, and then until the day I die, I'm just gonna keep reading it.
They have beautiful illustrations too with captions. And when I first moved into a temple when I was a teenager, I didn't have time really. I was put in charge of cleaning the kitchen. And I had a list of things that had to be done and cleaned, and the floor finally, and all the stove and everything every day. And I could never get done. And the temple president wouldn't let me go to sleep until I could get done. So I had to get up at 4 in the morning, but it was 11:30 and I was still cleaning. And I didn't really have that much time to read. But when in spare moments, I would steal away, I would look at the pictures and read the captions. And then that would give me an impetus, like I would say, oh, there's this story about Lord Shiva at the sacrifice and what happened. And, his wife burned herself up with yogic fire. And, so then I wanted to, hear, well, how did that happen? And what's it all about and everything? And that inspires you. But while you're reading, if you're reading for 7 years, you're reading pretty much every day. And when you're reading it, it's like meditation. It's like you're feeling the association of Krishna. You
become part of it. You become part of it, like you're really there. You can see these things in your mind. I'd be reading the book and looking at it, but I can see in my head what's going on while I'm reading it. It's like you're there. You can feel it. You can sense it. You can almost smell it sometimes.
Yeah, it's
like when they burned the Putana witch. I almost felt like I smelled it. The incense
that she was smelling. They burned this witch. She tried to kill Krishna, but Krishna accepted her. She came. There's a famous verse in the 3rd canto that Uddhava tells Vidura that how could I take shelter of anyone more merciful than Krishna? Because Putana came in order to kill him he was a little baby, not just to kill anyone, but to kill a little baby. You have to be really depraved, right? A helpless little baby. Everybody by nature wants to protect a baby, but Putana, her business was killing babies. She put poison on her breast, and she assumed a beautiful form so that all of the ladies present would want to say, oh, go see the baby, and go, and you can nurse the baby if you like. And of course she wanted him to take the poisoned breast and die. But instead, Krishna said, oh, she's offering me milk. She's my mother. I know, I'm God, I know everything. I know she's trying to kill me. But I see also that at least she wanted to come to me as a mother. So he gave her, the sister of Bakasura, Baki it's called in the verse. He gave her the position of his mother in the spiritual world, the transcendental position of his own mother, very, very devotional, intimate, loving relationship with him. That he was gave her that much good fortune. So Uddhava was saying, how could I take shelter of anyone more merciful than that he sees the good. People say, if you can't say something good about someone, don't say anything at all, right? If you see the good in someone, even if it's covered up by a lot of other bad qualities, but there's something good in them, if you could see that and magnify that and bring that out, then you're a very elevated person, a very noble person. So Krishna has that quality and that sense of gratitude for what little bit we do in devotional service. And he gave that position of mother to Putana. And then, of course, while he was killing her, by sucking her life out along with the milk that she was offering, and he wasn't affected by the poison, and she was saying, "Child, leave me," and trying to throw the baby down, and she assumed her actual form as this big, gigantic, ugly, terrible demon. And she fell down dead like a big mountain on the ground, miles long. And Krishna was there playing on the top of this mountain of her dead body. And that they were able to burn that body and cut it up and use it to burn it like fuel. And it smelled very fragrant because she had been purified by Krishna sucking her life out, so that it smelled like incense. And like you're saying, you read about this and you can almost smell. It's not ordinary literature. It's not ordinary reading. Ordinary book will take our mind away to a distant place. People like to read fantasies nowadays, or you could go to a different time and place historical novels. We can be back in the Middle Ages or in the Roman Empire or Egypt or something. Harry Potter. A lot of stories about magic powers. Those. But in Srimad Bhagavatam, there's that too. There are sages who have mystic powers and things, and it attracts the mind. But it's also the real thing. Harry Potter is like this imaginary witchcraft for kids to make it funny and stuff. But there are yogis who have mystic powers, and these are being described in Srimad Bhagavatam by Vyasadeva, someone who knows, and in a way that it also enlightens us. And when we read it, we can be there in a way that's even more so than when you're reading, about the Roaring Twenties or the, whatever you're reading. And everybody likes to read a great book. And a new book comes out, and everybody likes to read a book. But the Srimad Bhagavatam is like of a different category, and hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam is like meditation.
And all the knowledge you get, probably, you bring it back with you. Like you read those other books, and you take yourself there, but when you come back, it's nothing. You bring back nothing. No knowledge, and just saturation point to read mundane literature. But you read the Bhagavatam, you bring back all this knowledge with you, and you see things differently because you understand more.
There's a saturation point. You like something, you go see some movie, Gene Kelly is dancing and singing in the rain and stuff. And it's like fascinating to see, oh, look how good he's dancing and stuff like that. And it's pleasing at first. But if you see it over and over again, you get tired of it, and you don't like, I've seen that one before. And I want to see something new, I want to see, But the Srimad Bhagavatam isn't like that. You read the whole thing, or Bhagavad Gita, it's not like that. Newer and newer realizations. Yes? Oh, okay.
I wanted to ask a question after you finish your commentary.
Krishna was actually given a benediction when he went, after he killed Kamsa, he went to the Gurukul of Sandipani Muni, and he and Balaram learned everything, by hearing it one time. They learned all the Vedas and all the different arts and different, they just learned immediately, sort of like in the Matrix when you download a program. Okay, Kung Fu, and then you're expert. So Krishna was like that. He would hear from his guru and he would learn everything right away in this amazing way that nobody could ordinarily do. And afterwards, as is traditional, he offered his guru, I want to give you something, some dakshina. Ask me for something, I'll do anything for you, because you gave me so much knowledge. This is the traditional system. It wasn't like this is the tuition, it's so much per semester or something like that, but it was more personal, and it was a sliding scale this way, that each person would give whatever they could according to their capacity. So Sandipani Muni thought, Krishna is a very wonderful student, and therefore he could give me something very wonderful. And he told him, my son, my beloved son, recently died. Bring him back to me alive. So Krishna went to find out the son had died in the shore of the ocean, and Krishna went into the ocean, and he found a demon named Panchajanya, and he fought with the demon. It was a demon in the form of a giant conch shell, and he killed the demon who had killed the son, but the son was no longer there. And he kept the conch shell. He shrunk it down to a size that he became his personal conch shell that he uses as a trumpet. In the beginning of the Battle of Kurukshetra, Krishna blows on the Panchajanya conch shell, transcendental conch shell. And so then he went to the place of death, to Yamaraj, and he came and he got the son, and he brought the son back of his teacher from the land of death. And his teacher, Sandipani Muni, and his wife, teacher's wife, were so pleased with Krishna, so they wanted to give him some benediction too. They felt propitious. We learned a word today in this Brahma Samhita, propitious. When someone pleases you with their service and their words, like Lord Brahma had done for Krishna, then you feel propitious. You want to give them something, some boon. You want to make them happy. And so they benedicted Krishna, and one of the benedictions was that anything you say, Krishna, will always be fresh. It will never become stale and hackneyed. You can read Hamlet or, whatever. You can read it over and over again, but after a while, you become tired of it, and you have to teach a class in it, you have to teach everybody about The Great Gatsby or something like that. And, it's a great book, and it has so many different themes and how they're expertly presenting them and stuff. But after a while, they get boring you want to move on to something else or do something new. But Bhagavad Gita is never like that. So we had a comment here.
So my comment, it was not a comment, it was a question. So can you explain what is the source of, from where has all the verses been picked in Brahma Samhita from?
Well, the source is Lord Brahma.
No, I mean from, just like Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken, and so it's coming from there. But where has this originated?
So Lord Chaitanya was traveling in South India 500 years ago. After he took sannyas, he just took the 500th anniversary of his sannyas was last year. After his 24th year, or in his 24th year, he took sannyas. He was living in the Bengal, on the bank of the Ganges in Navadvip area. And then when he became a sannyasi, his immediate desire was to go to Vrindavan. But his mother convinced him that your brother Vishvarupa had become a sannyasi, a wandering mendicant, and had gone down to South India. So many great Vaishnavas were in South India. And his brother Vishvarupa went down to South India, and nobody ever heard from him again. In those days, they didn't have internet or even telephones or anything. And, he was a sannyasi, and he was wandering in South India, and they never heard from him again. So Lord Chaitanya's mother convinced him that if you stay in Jagannath Puri, it's one of the great holy sites. There's 4 places: Rameshwaram, Jagannath Puri, Badrik Ashram, and Mathura, I think? Or maybe I got Kurukshetra or something. Puri I said already. Sri Rangam. Rameshwaram, I already said that. Oh, you're Sri Rangam. No, it's not. Sri Rangam is not is not. Sri Rangam is a great temple. Rangakshetra, Ranganath temple is a great temple, biggest temple, but it's not one of the 4 places. Anyway, I think the other one is Mathura. Haridwar. What did I hear on the phone?
Hansapriya, it's Dwarka Dham.
Dwarka, correct. Thank you. Yes, it is Dwarka. It's Krishna's abode in Dwarka. So these are 4 places of pilgrimage. That Hansapriya, can you say something more about this? The importance of these 4 places of pilgrimage?
About the 4 Dhamas, the 4 Tirth Dhams?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know too much about it, but I do know that my parents, they wanted us to take 4 Dhams since our childhood, because the importance of the 4 Dhams were passed down to them from their families. And culturally, it's believed that if you go to these 4 Dhams, you can go back to Godhead.
So yeah, and
but
it's really
I don't know anywhere from the Shastras where any resources or anything.
Yeah, and it's kind of easy to get to Jagannath Puri and Rameshwaram and Dwarka. You could just get on a train and go. But Badrinath is a little hard because it's frozen ice most of the time, and it's only a few months in the summer that you can go, and you have to go by foot some of the way. It's mountain, so it's hard to get up there. But anyway. Lord Chaitanya, his mother told him, you can stay in Puri, and that way you're close to Bengal, and I'll get news about you, and I won't just you won't just be gone forever like your older brother. And before they had Vishwarup, they had other children that all died in childhood. So his mother was attached, and of course she was attached to Lord Chaitanya because of their affectionate relationship. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But she said, you stay in Jagannath Puri. He said, okay, I'll do that as a sannyasi. But then he decided, but I have to go to Vrindavan at least to make a pilgrimage to Vrindavan. And he also decided I have to go to South India and look for my brother and also see the holy places there and associate with the holy devotees there. And that's where he met the parents of Gopal Bhatta Goswami and so many different devotees in South India. And as he went through South India, everyone became a devotee of Lord Chaitanya and chanting Hare Krishna. He went and spread. The people in South India are very pious, and when Lord Chaitanya went there, the people became very enlivened to see this beautiful sannyasi and his swooning in love, and they all started chanting the holy names. And so when he went to this place called Adi Keshava Temple, I said this briefly earlier. There was a temple there on the Payasvini River in South India. And so Lord Chaitanya was already an expert in all the Vedas and everything and in Puranas. And he used to hear Srimad Bhagavatam over and over again. He would go to his friends, devotees like Gadadhar Pandit and Srivas Thakur and others. And they would read, and they would read some pastime of Dhruva Maharaj or something, and he would say, read it again. He would get so eager. And they would have them read about Prahlad Maharaj and Hiranyakashipu, this part of the 7th canto. And they would say, read it again. And they'd have to read it 100 times. He was in ecstasy, and he kept, very eagerly reading. So he knew, about Krishna and about how Krishna had his own. Because even in Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a description of Vaikuntha and how Krishna is situated in the spiritual world. But there isn't much discussion. And there's, of course, the description of Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan and his very sweet, intimate pastimes with his devotees there who don't think of him as God. They only think of him as this beautiful village boy that they all love so much. And Lord Chaitanya taught people that the highest mood of worship of Krishna is the highest method of worship of Krishna is that followed by the cowherd young girls in Vrindavan, the gopis who loved Krishna as their lover. And they weren't studying the Vedas, they weren't going in the forest and practicing pranayama and stuff like that. They were village girls, but they were just very much in love with Krishna like that. So he taught about that. And then when he was in this temple in Adi Keshava, he found this scripture. and it was just a fragment. In those days, scriptures were written, I mean, they had paper and ink also. They had different methods of writing, but one very successful method of writing was they had leaves that could be preserved, and they would take a metal stylus and cut the letters into the leaves, and then the leaves could be preserved and dried, but they had a book made out of leaves. In fact, different alphabets, like at least in northern India, there's the Devanagari alphabet, but in Devanagari you have a line across the top. It's a horizontal line, whereas in Gujarati or some others you don't have that line, because the different kind of leaves had different kind of fibers, so you couldn't really draw the same letters that way, so they would change the letters based on what kind of leaves they were writing on in different regions and stuff. So Lord Chaitanya found this one chapter that was still around from this very, very ancient book, and it was supposed to be 100 chapters long, but only this one could still be read and everything. And he got the scribes to copy it, and he brought it back and distributed it, this Brahma Samhita, to his disciples. Another book he found while he was in South India was by Bilvamangal Thakur, called Krishna Karnamrita. Krishna, a very intimate book about Krishna's pastimes by Bilvamangal Thakur. And he brought it back and showed his devotees this beautiful poetry of this blind Krishna Bhakta poet. Sometimes people get Bilvamangal and Surdas mixed up because they both had a very similar life story about how they put their eyes out in order to put their own eyes out in order to avoid being lusty by seeing beautiful women, and then they lived a long time. But Surdas composed in the Brajabhasha language, and they both lived in Vrindavan for a long time. And Bilvamangal Thakur composed in Sanskrit. So Lord Chaitanya liked very much the writings of Chandidas and some different Jayadeva Goswami, different poets like that. But especially Srimad Bhagavatam. Did that answer? Was that what you were asking about? Yeah. Yeah, he found it there while he was traveling in South India. And
it's not like a recitation from two people talking, just like the Srimad Bhagavatam is.
Well, there's two characters, there's Lord Brahma and Krishna, so it starts out with a description by someone who's not Lord Brahma, right? Because they're talking about how the whole universe was created and Brahma came out of the lotus and he saw gloom in all directions, and then he practiced meditation. So who that narrator is, and I've heard before, but I forget. Maybe it's Manu or... No, I don't remember. I heard sometime who's narrating that. And then, of course, Lord Brahma starts worshipping Krishna with this hymn, Govinda Mari Purushang Tamahang Bhajami. And then at the end, and Krishna, on hearing the hymn, feels propitious, and he says, Ato Vacha Mahavishnu Bhagavantam Adhokshacham. So there's two characters speaking, and then there's some narrator that's unidentified. And maybe if we had the rest of the book, we only have the chapter 5. We always say at the end, Iti Brahma Samhita Sampurnam, like as if we've recited the whole thing. But actually we've only recited chapter 5 of 100 chapters. But the other 99 chapters are not extant on the earth. It would be wonderful if somebody... there are a lot of scrolls or books of leaves in temples that could be lost to humanity. Just like there was a famous, in the classical world, there was a library at Alexandria that had all these books and scrolls and great wisdom of the ancient world, and there was a big fire at one point, or maybe it was even burned on purpose at one point. But they lost so many books. There are, ancient Greek books and things that talk about other books. Aristotle wrote this one other book on such and such, but it's lost to humanity because it was burned in the fire of the Alexandria library and stuff. And similarly, right now, the fire of, like rust is another kind of fire. Oxidation and things get old and decay and you can't read them anymore, and the leaves crumble, and unless they're preserved. And now they have this technology of, you can digitize things. Just like a lot of the movies of old Hollywood, there were silent movies, and they're made on this film that was very highly flammable and highly, what do they call it, nitrate or something like that. And it doesn't last very long. And they put them in reels, and they put them in some place, and they eventually just get too, withered and stuff, and you can't see, so sometime they found some in vaults at MGM or something, and then they were able to preserve them and digitize them so students of film can actually see, Lon Chaney as the Wolfman or whatever that would have otherwise been lost, Charlie Chaplin doing what, And similarly, there are all kinds of Vedic scriptures in India rotting away in temples. And some devotees, I think Garuda Das, I mentioned him earlier today, I think he was involved in putting together an organization called the Matsya Project, and they got a Smithsonian grant or some grant to be able to go and try to preserve these scriptures, because we never know, someone might find the rest of the Brahma Samhita or something like that. Some people accused, I heard a story that some people said, oh, Lord Chaitanya, he probably wrote that himself. And it wasn't really an ancient scripture, it was a hoax. He wrote it himself because it so perfectly explained his philosophy. And then they told that to Sridhar Maharaj, Prabhupada's godbrother. And Sridhar Maharaj said, oh, Lord Chaitanya wrote it himself? Even better. If it was from Lord Chaitanya, who else, what ancient author could have been as wonderful an author as Lord Chaitanya? But actually, that's not what happened. Lord Chaitanya found this ancient scripture there and preserved it. And so they got a grant from the Smithsonian to go and find all these books. And, there are all kinds of books about every subject, about astronomy, astrology, and medicine, and, different kinds of things. I don't know exactly what happened to that project. It's hard to run something like that, and you have to account for every penny that you get from this institution that gives you. And they now have a project also. They're building a big temple in Mayapur, and they have a project to create a library there. In fact, Harisari, one of Srila Prabhupada's intimate disciples, personal servant for many years and so forth. He wrote the Transcendental Diary, a wonderful book of history about Prabhupada's pastimes. He's become an expert working with archives. We have devotees, Ekanath Das and his wife Nitya Tripta and so forth, that have put together the Bhaktivedanta archives. We have recordings of Prabhupada. Actually, I was just reading on the internet. There are many, many recordings of Srila Prabhupada where he was speaking in Bengali or Hindi or something, and his American disciples didn't understand it, so nobody ever transcribed it. And now he has so many disciples that are grand disciples that could go and transcribe these in Hindi and then translate them too, and the archives has this material, and they've preserved it because some of the things that is preserved on, audio tape recording, and then the tape gets corrupted or used over or lost. But now they're trying to preserve things digitally and use the best in library science. And Harisari in Calcutta, he was donated some building, and he was able to get some libraries of senior Gaudiya Math devotees who had big libraries of original manuscripts by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, different things like that they had, that they didn't necessarily leave it to ISKCON, but then they left it to another Gaudiya Math branch who said, we don't have the facility, why don't you do, and he's making a library and preserving all those things. So this is important work, because not only the things from 1,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago or 5,000 years ago are important, but even things from 100 years ago. And this Brahma Samhita that we read was translated in the 20s, almost 100 years ago. And just the translation and, the writings, the purports of Bhaktisiddhanta are very important. But it's, Prabhupada let us reproduce this and change the Devanagari writing in many places to English. But he said, don't change the punctuation. Like there's places where I feel like, the word which should be there, or the comma should be in a different place or something. But Prabhupada wouldn't let us do that because he was afraid we would mess up the real meaning of what Bhaktisiddhanta had intended. So there are writings of Bhaktivinoda Thakur from the 19th century, or writings of Vishwanath from the 18th century that could be preserved and protected. And of course, these other Vaishnava sects and sampradayas have their own saints' writings and explanations. And some of them, they're detailed theological concepts and debates that don't even mean anything to us now. We don't have subtle enough intelligence to even understand it. But maybe we could, in the modern age where you can put millions of things, like they have the NSA has some facility where they can, keep millions and millions of, hours of everybody's phone conversations or something. I forget the word that they use in the information technology, but they have a whole campus full of memory that is now we have very miniature memory where you can put one bit of information on 12 molecules or something like that, or 4 molecules, and they have a whole big giant building full of that stuff so that they can record everybody's phone calls. And of course, then there's arguments over privacy and whether they ought to be able to preserve that information. I've gone way too long, haven't I? Anything else? Anything else before we do the Guru Puja and get on with the morning program? Okay.
That's one how I felt when I finished the Bhagavatam. I felt sad because I finished. I was like, oh man, what's next?
Well, you start over again.
What book would we read next after that? The Bhagavad Mitra or something, or the Brihad?
Brihad Bhagavatamrita is a wonderful book to read. Yeah. But you should read the Bhagavatam at least.
More, yeah.
Yeah, at least 10 times or something like that. Hanumat Preshak Swami, Hanumat Preshak Swami, right? He reads every year. He reads once a year. He reads the Bhagavatam. He reads one canto a month, and then it just so happens that the 10th month is Kartik time, so he takes that. So he reads the 10th canto, which is 90 chapters long. He reads very intensely, and he reads the whole Bhagavatam every year. He's been doing that for over 20 years. And that's very nice. And then you can also read other things. We just got another book, the Sanskrit school that Gopi Paranadhana started at Govardhan, Tattva Sandarbha. So Jiva Goswami was this great philosopher, and he synthesized and sort of put together in a very organized way the whole philosophy of Srimad Bhagavatam. And he made one treatise called the 6 Sandarbhas. The whole thing together is sometimes called the Bhagavata Sandarbha, but one of them is called Bhagavat Sandarbha. And so there's Tattva Sandarbha and Priti Sandarbha and Paramatma Sandarbha. There's 6 of them. Then the Shat Sandarbha, yeah. And the first volume, the Tattva Sandarbha, has now been translated into English by the Sanskrit school from Govardhan, along with his own commentary, which is in the second part of the book, So Sandarbha means like a garland. So he's taking the verses from Srimad Bhagavatam and stringing them like a garland and explaining how, they're sort of organized in the whole theology. And these are very important. This is an important treatise, and it's not available. I mean, it may be available in English, but not in a very nice presentation like they're doing like that. Brihad Bhagavatamrita is a great book by Sanatana Goswami. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, you should also read the Chaitanya Charitamrita by Prabhupada, and the Nectar of Devotion, and the Nectar of Instruction, and Sri Ishopanishad. And, Prabhupada gave us so many books already, but he says in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that any I don't want to misquote it, but basically any learned gentleman should also become familiar with the books of the 6 Goswamis. It actually says that unless we understand Narottam Das Thakur sings a song that unless we understand the writings of the six Goswamis, we can't possibly approach the understanding of Radha and Krishna and Vrindavan. Right? Rupa Raghunatha Pade Hoibe Akuti Kave Hama Heraba Shri Jugala Priti. There's a whole, also without getting the mercy of Lord Nityananda, which means becoming liberated and free from material desires. You can't really enter into the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. So we should learn this. So the six Goswamis wrote these fabulous dramas. Rupa Goswami wrote. Rupa Goswami was especially empowered. He's an eternal associate of Lord Chaitanya, eternal associate of Krishna, a Manjari in his original form. And he wrote the Vidagdha Madhava, Lalita Madhava, and Laghu Bhagavatamrita. Go ahead. Ujjvala Nilamani, and many different works. He composed poetry, and he even made Sanskrit poetry in different shapes, like chakras and things like puzzles almost, where the different meanings were related. When you read it upside, if you read this spoke this way or that spoke that way, or you read the circle around. These were genius devotees of Lord Chaitanya that wrote this fascinating literature, and most of us, until we really, like Srimad Bhagavatam is the postgraduate study of Bhagavad Gita. Chaitanya Charitamrita is like the postgraduate study of Srimad Bhagavatam. It's like a romatic clef, they say. You know this phrase, romatic clef? Sometimes someone writes a novel. It's a French word. It means a novel with a key. That someone writes, like Simone de Beauvoir wrote The Mandarins. It's a novel about people in Paris after World War II, and they were, part of the political, intellectual elite that were running, magazines for the Socialist Party or whatever. But if you know their lives, you know who they really are. There was this great romance going on between her and some American leftist and stuff like that, who was a folk singer or something. But if you know their real life, you can know, oh, this person is really that person, and this person is really that. So the Chaitanya Charitamrita, you have Lord Chaitanya's devotees all interacting in different ways. But if you know who they really are in Krishna's Leela, then you can see why they're behaving with Lord Chaitanya that way. So Kavi Karnapur has also written some biographical literature about Lord Chaitanya, and he wrote the Gaura Gonadesh Deepika, which also tells who the different associates of Lord Chaitanya were in their pastimes when Krishna was on earth. And then, so we should read. So Prabhupada translated the Chaitanya Charitamrita because it's very important for us to know that Lord Chaitanya also, how he is actually Krishna, and how he's really, his pastimes were these special, amazing pastimes of mercifully giving out this Krishna consciousness very much. So that's a good one to read, and then gradually this Goswami's literature will be translated by people in ISKCON eventually. But it's not an easy thing. It's not just ABCD translation. One has to have realization and be able to translate it. It's not just that because you speak the language, so many people have translated Bhagavad Gita or whatever, but Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita really makes people into devotees when they read it because of his realization, and he can present the Krishna book in a way that you can understand the philosophy. Actually, I recommend that. For beginners, those of you who are not that familiar, but you want to know something about what is Krishna's pastimes, along with Bhagavad Gita, you can read the book. We have it in one volume, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which presents the 10th canto in a way that makes it accessible and tells all of Krishna's pastimes, but explains it from the pure devotee's point of view so that it really comes alive, like we were talking about before. It's not just a professional man reciting or some scholar who's got many PhDs, but it's not really a devotee. But it's told by a devotee who understands the emotions and can present them, and you feel it. Okay, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai.
Jai.
So please put the books away and we'll get ready for Guru Puja. Hare Krishna. Did Hari Sankirtan go? Thanks. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Shadma Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Shadma Bando Mui Savadhana Mate Bando Mui Savadhana Mate Jahara Prashade Bhai Bhava E Bhavatoriyai Jahara Prashade Bhai Bhavato Riyayai Krishna Prapti Hoy Jaha Hoy Te Krishna Prapti Hoy Jaha Hoy Te Guru Mukha Padma Bhakya Chitete Koriya Aikya Guru Mukha Padma Bhakya Chitete Koriya Aikya Arna Kori Ho Mane Asha Arna Kori Ho Mane Asha Shri Guru Charane Rati Eshe Uttama Gati Shri Guru Charane Rati Eshe Uttama Gati Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asha Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asha Chakudano Diloje Janme Janme Prabhu She Chakudano Diloje Janme Janme Prabhu She Divya Gyan Hriday Prakashito Divya Gyan Hriday Prakashito Prema Bhakti Jaha Hoite Avidya Vinashayate Prema Bhakti Jaha Hoite Avidya Vinashayate Bedegai Jahara Charito Bedegai Jahara Charito Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adhama Janara Bandhu Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adhama Janara Bandhu Lokanath Lokera Jivana Lokanath Lokera Jivana Ha ha Prabhu Koro Doya Deho More Padachaya Ha ha Prabhu Koro Doya Deho More Padachaya Ebe Jash Kushuk Tribhuvana Ebe Jash Kushuk Tribhuvana Ha ha Prabhu Koro Doya Deho More Padachaya Ha ha Prabhu Koro Doya Deho More Padachaya Prabhupada Patita Pavana Prabhupada Patita Pavana pade loilo sharana. Gurudev patita pavana. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jayo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya. Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya. Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya. Radha Ramana Hari, Govinda Jaya Jaya. Radha Ramana Hari, Govinda Jaya Jaya. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hari Haraya Namah, Krishna Yadavaya Namaha. Hari Haraya Namah, Krishna Yadavaya Namaha. Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha. Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha. Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan. Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan. Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan. Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan. Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Sita. Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Sita. Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita. Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita. Shri Rup Shri Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath. Shri Rup Shri Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath. Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Dasha Raghunath. Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Dasha Raghunath. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Om Vishnu Pada Paramahansa Pri Rajakacharyastu Tarasata Shri Shrimad His Divine Grace Abhaya Charanaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnu Pada Paramahansa Pri Rajakacharyastu Tarasata Shri Shrimad His Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Shyama Kundu Radha Kundu Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Gangamai Jamunamai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. Harinam Sankirtana Ki Jai. Miracle on Latham Street Book Distribution Marathon Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the lotus feet of Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Hari Hari Bol. So do we have announcements? Who are the cooks this morning for the morning's offering? Bhaktivatsal cooked this morning's offering. Ki Jai. Nothing else to announce, huh? Let's sing the Prasadam prayers. Can we have them on the board? Sharira apityaja Jodendriya tahika Jibe pele bishaya shagore Dharmaje jibayati Lobhamoy suturmati Take jeta kotina samsare Krishna Bharotoyamoy Koribare Chivajoy Swaprashad Annadilo Bhai Shayanamrita Pao Radha Krishna Guna Gao Preme Dakosh Chaitanya Nitai Hey Prabhu Advaita Pare Dui Prabhu Bhojane Boshilo Shakori Ashwadana Prabhu Bole Bhakta Gana Esha Krishna Ashwadilo Heno Shak Ashwadane Krishna Prema Aishe Mane Che Preme Koro Ashwadan Jara Buddhi Parihari Prasad Bhojana Kori Hari Hari Bolo Sarvajan Chachi Rangane Kabhu Madhavendra Puri Prabhu Prasadana Korena Bhojan Kaite Kaite Ta Ailo Prema Shudurba Bole Shuno Sannasiragan Mocha Kanta Pura Bari Tali Dana Chachari Shachimata Korilo Randan Tara Shudha Bhakti Heri Bhojana Korilo Hari Shudha Shama Eyana Pyanjan Joge Jogi Pai Jaha Bhoge Aj Hoibe Taha Hari Boli Kao Shabe Bhai Krishnera Prasadana Trijagat Kore Dhanna Tripurari Nache Jahapai Tripurari Nache Jahapai Mahaprasade Govinde Nama Brahmani Vaishnave Swalpa Punya Batang Rajan Vishvaso Naiva Jayate Prasade Sarva Dukhanam Hanirasyo Pajayate Prasanna Chetaso Yashu Buddhik Paryavatishtate Bhagavat Prasadam Ki Jai. Please come take Prasadam.
Prasadam will be served in the back room.
Okay. Is it served? Is it out there now or? Okay. Thanks.